Hey, what's going on, Apex fans? Welcome along to the GLL Masters Summer. My name is Onset. I'm going to be taking you through all of the EMEA action today as we kick off what is going to be a lot of weeks of fun Apex action. But of course, it's not just me. I am really happy to announce, of course, alongside me is the beautiful, the resplendent, the wonderful Daniel Gaskin. Great to have you back in the booth, my friend. And I'm sure that you're super excited to get the action back underway.
I am, and that's more compliments that you've given me then in that one sentence than you have in the last 6 months, so I appreciate it. But yeah, it's the perfect time for me to join you for some commentary, really. A new patch in the last week should shift the meta, or has already shifted the meta, but we'll see in today's action. And a really cool format as well with promotion and relegation, so a lot for me to look forward to commentating again.
Yeah, we've got so much to talk about before we get into our match number one. Of course, like you mentioned, we have recently had, with the patch that came out recently with Season 5, you know, a lot of changes in the Legends and what they can do and what they can't do and the compositions that we're seeing some of these competitive teams run. And as well as that, we have to remember that in their GLL Master Summer, we're going to be playing across 2 different maps as well. So we're going to see the reintroduction of Kings Canyon back into the rotation.
Yeah, in Kings Canyon, like POIs have been changed, and we've got loads of new things and fun features that have been added that are going to shift the meta as well. So I think the fact we get to see both maps is always going to put the players to a test. And we start on one half of the day with one map, we play it 3 times, and then the second half of the day, we see the other 3 games on a different map. So I think that's just going to change the meta. We'll see like compositions that are going to be thrown out of the window from one map to another. Like, honestly, it's just going to be a good fun watch, and I can't wait to do it alongside you.
Yeah, I think it's not only a learning process for everyone that's had to adapt to these changes, which are, of course, the players, the teams, but everyone who's watching as well is going to be learning as we get through these games and as the weeks go on. And speaking of games and the tournament schedule, this is, of course, for the EMEA region. As you can see here, July 2nd, that is today. That's where we're kicking everything off with League Day 1. And you can see as we move through all of the dates until we get down to our grand finals, which is split over 2 different days on August 1st and 2nd. We'll hope that you, of course, will join us for that. But that's a long way away, Dan. There's a lot of action to go until we get to that point, and all these teams need to get points on the board as soon as possible.
Yeah, 24 matches to get yourself into the grand finals. If you haven't done by that point, there's the last chance opportunity in week 5 on July 30th, and then we will have our teams, then we'll have our finals. You secure yourself some ALGS points if you do get to those finals, so money on the line, but also ALGS points to be thinking about as well. And there's always going to be that extra element of the promotion and relegation that we were talking about between the Alpha division and the Bravo division, which is going to add that extra little bit of a thought process in the back of the players' minds.
Yeah, I think it's a great point that you talk about there, and we'll have a quick look at the prizing and points before we get on to what I was about to mention about the divisions. And you can see $100,000 on the line here for these teams to fight it out for. And if you're new to Apex Legends and you want to know how these teams do manage to get points on the board, you can see it on the right-hand side of your screen there. First place, as far as placements is concerned in the game, will pick up 12, and then it goes down with the corresponding placements. Unfortunately, if you finish in 16th to 20th, then you don't get rewarded with anything whatsoever. But 1 point per kill is the big thing for me. With this little shift we've seen in the meta, some aggressive comps coming in, kill points seem to be more valuable than they almost ever have been in Apex Legends now, Dan.
And they'll be even more valuable in the Alpha division. As you can see, double points are available if you are playing in those Alpha lobbies. So if you are in that Bravo lobby, okay, you're not going to accumulate as much points as those in the Alpha lobby. So you really need to be getting into the top 5 in the Bravo lobby to ensure that you can play for those double points for the following weeks, which is going to add to the excitement for me. But yeah, you're completely right. The point per kill has always been an important addition, but now in particular with those changes, with the likelihood of seeing kind of more Revenant and people pushing and getting aggressive and looking for those early fights, we are really going to see people amp up that aggression to try and pick up those points.
I think we should just touch upon the fact that we have the Alpha and Bravo division as well. And, you know, teams and players have been competing for the last couple of days to fight through the qualifiers to get into one of those 2 divisions. And we've seen some crazy last minute, you know, points tallies that have put teams either into that Alpha division or seen them fall out into the Bravo division. But it really gives us something to talk about, not only at the top of the table that we're used to talking about in tournament play, you know, who's going to win the tournament, who's going to be crowned champions. Every single team that's floating around that, you know, that bottom 10 teams as we get into those final games is going to be super nervous and looking over their shoulders constantly, because the teams who are in the Bravo division, Dan, they're going to be desperate, like you mentioned, to get into Alpha division to get those double points on the board.
And with how the schedule works, the fact that we start one half of the day on World's Edge and then we move into Kings Canyon, for me, I feel like we're going to see a little bit more aggression in Kings Canyon. You can see here we will have 3 games on World's Edge, then 3 games on Kings Canyon. So if you're at the bottom of those leaderboards, at the end of the World's Edge games, then you're going into Kings Canyon. I'm saying, yeah, like, let's get an aggressive composition. Let's try and take these fights. Let's pick up these points. Maybe you could even see people starting to try and target people's drop locations to ensure they can take them out of the game so they can catch them up and stay in the Alpha Division. There's all these different things that people will be considering when they're on the drop and when they're thinking about where they're going to be going.
Yeah, it's certainly going to make for some spicy late games. We can see match 5 and match 6 are definitely ones that you're going to be wanting to tune into as we move over to Kings Canyon. And as you mentioned, Kings Canyon is the first time we've seen it reintroduced into competitive play in some time. And the fact that we've got the new POIs and we've got the new, rotations that teams are going to have to be working with, as well as those new comps, is certainly going to make it an interesting watch for everyone who is involved in the tournament. But speaking of teams who are involved in the tournament, here is the Alpha Division, the top 20 teams who made it into the Alpha Division. Dan, who are the teams that you've got your eye on as we move through these games?
I mean, we're calling it Alpha for a reason. There's so many to choose from, but I guess I need to highlight Alliance, who are looking phenomenal right now. Triumph, a good team. But me personally, I'm excited to see what the EMEA region offers. Those who qualified outside of Europe, Fenerbahce, the Turkish team look really strong. Elite Gaming, the only South African squad that are in this as well. So there's a real chance for them to mix with some of the best European teams. And I'm just wondering how they're going to go up against them. Are they going to have any kind of different ideas about the meta and the composition? So we'll see how they hang. But I don't know about you. What are your teams that you want to be looking at?
I mean, I'm looking at Nasky, Strafe, and Dell, as well as Alliance, as maybe being two of the front runners that we have in the Alpha Division. You have the likes of Gambit Esports, you have the likes of Flavor of the Month as well. As you say, there's a lot of powerhouse teams in here, and quite rightly, because of the fact that it is, of course, the Alpha Division. But we should remind ourselves, there's 20 teams in here at the moment. 5 of those will be dropping down to the Bravo Division, and this is how the teams will line up in Bravo Division. And again, some big names not making it into the Alpha Division early, the likes of Na'Vi, the likes of North, maybe teams who we would expect to make it into that Alpha lobby now have to fight their way back through today to have the right to play there in the next week.
Yeah, a couple, maybe even several teams that can really shake up the Alpha Division when they're promoted. I say when because you can see they are going to get promoted. If it's not week 1, maybe it's week 2, because they have the potential to do so. Some of these teams just missed out on the Alpha Division by a couple of points, so they'll be looking to kind of get a little bit of revenge, burst back into the Alpha Division, and then they'll get to pick up those double points in the Alpha lobbies.
And also it's the opportunity for some of the new talent that we haven't seen too much to maybe make a name for themselves. Maybe there's going to be some hyper-aggressive teams that we haven't seen so far in the ALGS make it into that top 20 for the European regions that we have seen in the EMEA region that we've seen in previous tournaments, who with this change in meta, with this change of comps, all of a sudden might have kind of found the little key that unlocks their true potential, and we could see them making some real runs in these tournaments and maybe upsetting some teams in the Alpha lobby should they get there.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to touch on the compositions because we are going to see changes. We are going to see people trying things that are new, but I also want to kind of focus on the fact that people should be comfortable as well. You don't want to just be picking Legends for the sake of it being part of the meta and you see TSM do it, or you see another big team do it. If you are used to playing Wattson and you're comfortable playing Wattson and you've put all those hours into practicing Wattson, you stay. You do a job and you can still stay with that composition. You stay with what's comfortable for the team, because it still can work. It's not like you have to change to this aggressive composition we've seen from other teams and other players. You can still go for that traditional default setup and it will work if you play it right.
Yeah, I think a good example of that recently is we'll talk about the North America region. Look at Rogue and the success they've had in the last couple of tournaments, last couple of days. Those guys have been running Pathfinder, they've been running Wattson, they've been running Wraith. And I mean, that's a composition that we've talked about for, there's the distance that we've talked about Apex Legends in the competitive scene. So there's so many options now, which I think is an interesting thing, certainly for teams to experiment with. I think consistency is the one thing maybe that a few teams are struggling with at the moment. But I mean, would you put that down to the fact that there has been this meta shift and people are changing so many things that there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be faults in the teams? Or do you think it's just a case of the meta is shifted away from consistency and now maybe teams are just looking for 1 or 2 big games per tournament to put them into those good places?
I think certainly like 1 or 2 teams can shake up a lobby, even if they're not shaking up the meta. If you've got one team who's going pure aggression, they can really kind of throw caution to the wind. And you will see, I think, people trying to counter certain compositions. Shot from all kinds of directions at the moment. Thankfully, he's able to pop it off, and now he can go around this rock, finish off this kill if he wants, which he does. He needs to help out the team, though. Oh my goodness, he's just absolutely ripping through shields right now.
Yeah, the Hemlock is proving effective, and he manages to get the complete wipe on the team, so the damage done by his teammates.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately for him, though, he can't quite managed to get out of that position at the last second. He gets hit by the longbow shot, and that's actually coming in from Strafe, from Nasky, Strafe, and Dell. So although the good work was done there, and that's how they like to try and play, take those edge fights, unfortunately for them, it gets 3 kill points on the board, but a beautiful longbow shot means that they won't be continuing in this lobby.
There's another fight going down here, though. LCB under fire. And Cutie Sati has done pretty well to at least down one. He does have help from his teammates, and they are just absolutely swarming there. That's going to be another one, and they'll be able to just loot up. But look how much they're under fire at the moment. There's just bullets flying left, right, and center. You've got to be so careful. They've only got like one little crate to hide behind at the moment. Phoenix Kit is going to have to be popped. They feel like they're comfortable, and now they just have to get out of dodge with 18 seconds until this ring moves in. One of the interesting compositions that we did see on bodyguards was the fact that we saw the Revenant, but it was alongside a Gibby and a Watson, which is a kind of, again, an in-between of trying to find that aggressive formation, but then also having the defensive capabilities as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult rotation in there for BDS Esports as well. Having just won that fight, I think they're going to be super happy that, you know, they have managed to get those KP on the board, because you've got to think about where they've got to move now, and they've got a pretty difficult run in front of them. We knew that there's 2 teams still in Sorting Factory. Alliance was, there was another team set up in the choke as well between the Dome and Sorting Factory. So they're going to have a pretty difficult time rotating. I think if they get a top 5 placement, they're going to be ecstatic with that from the position that they're in. So the KP even more vital for them. As you now see Nook on the Wraith trying to make his way in towards the Dome area around this lava, and it's so difficult to play these open areas. You've got to find yourself a spot to try and hold down, but if they can do that, they do have the Watson, but a big crack there with the Arcstar is going to do enough damage for them to maybe try and push in here and execute on this push. We're going to see a beautiful shot there with the Mastiff to hit 60. There's an 88, there's a 77, and everything's lining up like bingo at the moment for him, but unfortunately they can't get the downs, but his teammates are going to be able to push in and hopefully get those finishes. He's going to have to pop the bat. The Watson's going to pop out. They don't get the finishes. They do manage to get some shots away, though, and who's going to win this battle? It's down to Blast now, the last man alive on his team, but he'll be taken down, and you have to feel for all the damage that was done there. They maybe shouldn't have been losing that fight, but it was against one of the strongest teams in the lobby, and that is, of course, Nasky, Strafe, and Dell.
Yeah, they were getting all the numbers on the bingo card, but just couldn't quite get full house. Someone else came in and stole them right from their feet, and Strafe is under a little bit of trouble here as well, trying to get away, whereas Flavor of the Month are continuing their aggression that we've seen previously. They've been able to loot up these boxes after being able to third party, so they can get a bit of free loot here. I know there was 2 gold shields that were available for them to work with. Taylor's been able to pick up 1. So they certainly are a big threat right now in this lobby, especially when we've seen the likes of Alliance that have been taken out. We're down to just 7 squads now. BDS are really raining down fire at the moment. Some incredible shots coming out with the Scout. And you can see they're working with some Evo shields. So they are looking so geared at the moment.
Yeah, 2 full red Evo shields as well for them to work with. So they've got a big HP advantage over a lot of players who will still be left in this lobby. But another thing we should talk about with the Revenant ult there, that's something that a lot of players are starting to do as well. You can actually use it to essentially get yourself loot. And we saw Flavor of the Month there. They tried to third party, but one advantage of it as well, if you put that totem down somewhere that you're going to be able to return to, you can just run in, loot up, and then return to that totem should you get shot and should you get, you know, taken out of that death protection. So another use for the Revenant ult being shown there. Maybe not deliberately, but something that maybe players could consider as we get into those late games.
Well, certainly when you know that other teams are going to have like fully gassed up Evo shields that you would love to have, and you see those boxes on the floor and you know that those fights have already gone through. If you haven't been able to loot up successfully early, the fact that Revenant offers you that is just another reason why he is slowly shifting his way into the meta. And I'm happy. I mean, Revenant has been pretty garbage for quite some time. So the fact he's now actually doing some real damage with the changes that have been offered, I like seeing shifts in the meta. I like seeing players playing something different and maybe getting out of their comfort zone ever so slightly.
So round 4 will be closing in 20 seconds time as we see in the fights go in here, and it's going to be Zaya who's desperately trying to stay alive. Gets the armor swap as well. Now he's going to be trying to chase down this final kill. Beautiful wingman shots. Can he hit the Mastiff? Yes, he can. He manages to take down Strafe there, and that's going to be a big play from him coming in as the Watson, managing to hit those beautiful wingman shots. Flashbacks to Poland, and this man with that beautiful 1v2. Once again, the wingman seems to be the best gun to have in his hands when he's in those clutch and pressured moments.
I was going to say that. I think the last time I cast it was when he was doing the same thing in Poland, and now he's doing it again. He doesn't have the time to res his teammates at the moment, though, as there's an engagement elsewhere. Triumph Mady is going to fall, and it's just going to be JMW left in the moment, desperately trying to escape. And the floor is literally lava right now, but at least he has some shield cells to pop. Can he survive? Is he going to be spotted as he's running away? Looks like he's done okay for now. Does see a couple of players crawling around. He's going to try his best, but it's not going to work out. He will fall. And now we're down to just 5 squads here, Mark.
And who was that? Of course, it was Zanya, who was that player who managed to rat out of that position, having won that big battle and was the last alive for his team, who not only gets an extra KP on the board for his team, but also now moves up into a placement point as well. So 4 squads left remaining. We had the rat there of Zanaya. We have Flavor of the Month here as well. One of the teams who rotated early, and then need to find out who those last 2 teams are. BDS, of course, and YDN, who are left. And you can see, look at the shielding here. Absolutely perfect here for Flavor of the Month. They've been aggressive. They've been proactive in this game as well on fights and KP. And I mean, I'm just looking at the KP here for Pierre. He's got 3 on the board himself, so you have to wonder how many his teammates have got alongside him.
He's also got a decent amount of ammunition behind him as well, and he's putting in some serious damage. But look how they're just hiding, just defensively at the moment, trying to scout out where all these teams are. Even though they have the aggressive composition and they could initiate a fight, it's always difficult when there's 4 squads available, as Pierre is going to go down. He will fall, but the res certainly is possible. They can get him back up here. They just have to be careful. Because there's so many squads around, they should be able to pick him up if people are fighting each other. But as the zone's coming in, they're being pressured from both sides now, and it looks like they're stuck between several different teams. The ult has to come out from the Revenant, but is it going to be enough? Taylor is going to go down. Actually, yep, that's going to be all 3 of them wiped, and this has not gone well for them as we're down to just 2 squads now, Mark.
Yeah, and Gambit Esports are one of those teams. You can see Psychop, Kramer, and Sati as well, and Devo is shredding through shields. There's Evo shield's being broken, and the push is now coming in, but a big massive shot is actually going to back down that player, and they're going to lose one player here in Kramer, and now it's going to be the auto Prowler not working as well, and Gambit somehow are managing to hold off this push here. Artico was the player with the R9, and now it comes down to, I believe, a 1v1 potentially, a 1v2 maybe, as we see the massive shot come in. It is a 1v1. He doesn't hit the massive shots, but the Watson does. And a huge shot to win that game. The final bullet was struck, and it was sweet down. A fantastic, fantastic massive shot to close that game out. Gambit managed to clutch up.
Yeah, Gambit just coming in at the right time and being able to kind of catch Flavor of the Month off guard a little bit there. I thought that Flavor of the Month were going to be in a fantastic position considering their composition at the end game, but they found themselves just kind of stuck between all 3 teams. You can see they were looking at the other team saying, okay, should we engage at this point? Is it the right time to push? They were reluctant to for quite some time, and in the end they just got stuck between everyone else. But a fantastic end to a game. I always love to see how hectic it gets, and we might not see the tiny circles that we've seen in the history of Apex Legends, but when it's in a wide open area like that, we are going to have more open fights.
Yeah, I think Flavor of the Month there just found themselves in the worst position out of the 3 teams when they had those 3 teams remaining. Everyone's always waiting for someone to go first, to start first, you know, in that fight so that they can become the 3rd party. But unfortunately for them, they were the ones who had to make that move from the outside of the ring to inside of that next ring. So see both teams just crossfired and lasered them, and it came down to that 1v1 at the end. And oh, I mean, you have to feel like maybe that should have gone the other way a little bit, because there were some whiffy massive shots initially from one side that really didn't count, and then the big one at the end. I didn't quite catch who it was actually who hit that final massive shot, but in those 1v1 situations, it's such a pressure-filled situation, and it really is a case of maybe an early game fight is so much easier than that final because of the pressure that is put on your shoulders.
Yeah, certainly the rest of the team are going to be holding their breath as well, and it depends. Do they let you just play that 1v1 themselves? Are they going to be backseating it, like calling things out for you as well? Like, what kind of player are you? Do you prefer to be in those pressure situations, or do you suddenly get a little bit nervous and the palms get a little bit sweaty? It's one thing that we've seen, like, from the difference between online tournaments and LAN tournaments is in a LAN environment, that suddenly becomes 10 times scarier. And of course, right now in the pandemic, we don't have the ability to see these LAN tournaments, but online, still things are pretty difficult when you're in a 1v1 situation, because your teammates will let you know if you've lost that 1v1 and you should have won it. Oh, they're certainly going to be in your ear.
I don't know what you mean. I just say unlucky, mate. Go again next time.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
100%. That's me. You know me. Real good IGL. Anyway, I mean, I think we learned a little bit about how Europe is going to be playing that first game, as we did jump into some of these highlights early on. There was obviously some early contention, which I think might sort itself out as we run through, you know, the games that we have today. We have 6 games to bring you, of course, but I think the fact that we've already seen, you know, different compositions playing in different ways and different compositions having different levels of success as well is, again, just sets us up for a very, very interesting set of games today. And as I say, the story is going to develop through the weeks, but that was a big, big play from Matafe there, but almost as big as the longbow shot that followed up to finish it. But this is getting towards the end of the game here. You can see Artico is the last man alive. Misses that shot, hits a few R9, but that big, big, massive shot towards the end is what won it to him, and the little celebratory kick as well. We always love to see that when you win those big 1v1s, but Artico is a man who loves to clutch up in those 1v1 situations, and he's shown it again there. Big win for them.
And what were your thoughts on the compositions that we saw then? Because there was actually quite a lot of them, a lot of differences. The most interesting for me was having the Gibby, the Watson, and the Revenant. Even though bodyguards, they were eliminated somewhat early, we didn't really get to see it in action. That isn't what I'm expecting when I see a Revenant in a lineup. I would be expecting to see it alongside a Wraith or maybe something like a Crypto to try and utilize his ultimate ability. But I guess there's no reason why you can't throw a Revenant in a more defensive comp as well.
Yeah, I mean, he just becomes your aggressive player, right? If you've got a Gibraltar and a Watson, you've got someone that you can set up, you can play from, you can play edge of circle. You kind of have a lot of options covered. The only problem is if you have to make a rotation in late and you are playing edge circle, you don't have that portal ability. You don't have that ability to, maybe scout out a little bit of earlier, even though, Wraith has been nerfed a little bit with the time that it takes to get into the void. So you can't do that scouting quite as effectively. If you get shot, you're going to have to basically back out immediately. But that's the only thing I would say. It's a very strong defensive composition. Revenant gives them that opportunity to maybe push if they want to, but I don't know. I still think that Wraith is going to be needed in the composition for me. I think it still offers a lot of stuff with that portal. So yeah, we're going to see it develop. And as I say, it's still fascinating for me. Every single game we watch, I think we're going to see different comps. Move over to North America, in the Americas, different comps. And I think that's just going to change through the weeks until people get settled.
Well, whilst Mark and I discuss compositions and get excited about them, we're going to go for a very quick break. But when we come back, of course, we're going to have match number 2. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I know it might be welcome back to some. It might be welcome to the show for some. Of course, it is the GLL Masters summer season. And I know that we had a few problems with getting the broadcast underway. Hopefully, you guys were lucky enough to catch some of that first game that we had, of course, with Gambit Esports taking home the winner. A fantastic performance for them, Dan. But if you are just joining us, what we're going to do is we're going to get through the housekeeping nice and quickly for you to get you up to date with how everything works in the tournament, how everything's going to work in GLL Masters summer. So what we're going to do is start off by showing you, of course, the schedule for today. So this is the EMEA region and how everything is going to work. This isn't just for today, of course, this is for the entire season, Dan. As you can see here, we've got 4 league days building up to our last chance qualifier, and then we have our grand finals playing out over 2 days of action.
Yeah, if you haven't been able to qualify for the finals after 24 matches, which you should have at that point, if you're good enough, then you do get a last chance qualifier with 6 more matches to get to this grand finals, where you will pick up ALGS points as well as prize money, of course, on the line in the EMEA region. We've already seen some impressive Apex action, but we can have a look at the points and prize money that's available in this tournament as well. $100,000 total prize pool, and a point system that most of you will be used to seeing in the LGS. The only difference that you will see is there are double points available in the Alpha Division. There is an Alpha Division and a Bravo Division that teams will be competing in. The top 5 from the Bravo Division get promoted after each day, and the bottom 5 in the Alpha Division get demoted each day. So something extra to play for all these teams.
Yeah, it's going to certainly make the games a lot of fun to watch. And speaking of the schedule, let's look at what today looks like. We've, of course, already had our first game of the day. As I mentioned, Gambit Esports took home the win. And you can see that there on World's Edge. And then we've got 2 more maps here on World's Edge. 2 more matches on the map World Edge, I should say, before our final 3 games will be moving over to Kings Canyon. You can see all the times there that those matches will be scheduled to start. So make sure you don't miss on any of the action. But as I say, first time we've seen Kings Canyon reintroduced for a while in competitive Apex. Super excited to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, of course, new POIs added to Kings Canyon, and just a load of little things that are going to probably shake up the meta, as well as all the composition changes that we've been seeing because of the latest patch and the changes to some of the legends. We can take a look at the leaderboard then after the first match today. BDS at the top with 20 points because of their kills, but Gambit Esports did take first place. They get 12 placement points with 6 kills. So a decent start for both of them. A somewhat disappointing start, I'd say, Mark, for the likes of Alliance, who unfortunately just fell a little bit early on.
Yeah, they fell early, but, you know, there's lots of games to come. As we know, in Apex Legends, it's all about consistency, not just what happens in one game. But BDS, what a performance it was from them to put up 20 points on the board. As you say, they didn't get that first place finish as far as placement was concerned. They actually lost out in that big 1v1 to Gambit Esports. But 20 points on the board, you really cannot argue with that. That's a huge performance. And when teams are looking between, you know, 10 and 12 points to potentially, you know, win a tournament when we go across, you know, 4, 5, 6 games, then obviously you can see what a big game that was for BDS.
Yeah, I think the fact that they were able to pick up that many kills just shows like the ability they have in the squad. We have to look at Flavor of the Month as well. They were one of the more aggressive sides, but they were only able to pick up 5 kills. I say only, I mean, 5 kills is still a lot. And there was a couple of teams that creeped into the top 10 there that weren't able to pick up many kills at all, but were still able to get a really decent placement. So we are seeing across the lobby a difference in how they want to approach World's Edge, and we knew this was going to be a possibility. We knew there were going to be some teams that were going to go for the more default approach to a composition and trying to play for that late game, trying to play for those early rotations. And then some teams that are just saying, you know what? We want these points. We want these kill points that are available. We want to try and shift to a different composition that maybe is going to work out a little bit better in Kings Canyon, and they'll get the practice in on World's Edge.
Well, the interesting thing for me as well is if we look at the bottom of the table, normally we don't pay too much attention to that, like we mentioned, but the fact that we have our Alpha division and our Bravo division now means that the teams who are in that bottom 5 from Alpha are going to be looking over their shoulders, even just one game in. I have to say, you're looking at teams above you putting points on the board, and you've got to start thinking, you know, if you're one of those teams who was contesting off drop, maybe you've got to change that immediately. You weren't aware that there was a team dropping where you were. Fenerbahce Esports, one of the teams to, you know, fall foul of that in that first game, dropping on Tree with Outsiders, I believe, who were contesting them, and they lost that fight. So that's one thing that I think teams have certainly got to consider. If they're one of the teams who aren't, you know, high on the leaderboards at the moment and you're in a contesting spot off drop, you've got to change that up early to give yourself a chance, at least, to put some points on the board in game number 2.
And I think that first match was interesting because the circle was somewhat predictable with the heavy shift to the southern side near Dome, is that people were able to rotate very early and get set up. So those teams that dropped in the northern side of the map were really struggling to get in because there was a lot of gatekeeping going on. People already had set up. I think those who scanned from the northern side of the map were probably just like, for goodness sake, we've got to try and get across all of this terrain, and they were just being shot from every single angle. Match 2 could be a lot different if we see a different circle. If we see something more central, then perhaps this is going to be a longer game, because I think that one went relatively fast in the grand scheme of things. It didn't get down to the last circles. Instead, it was a relatively big circle still left when we saw the final engagements.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to maybe some of the comps these teams are running. They're being a little bit more aggressive on those fights early on, and we're not seeing, you know, the Watsoned up buildings and, you know, the Watsoned up areas on the map towards those end circles where you are seeing, you know, 10, 12, 14 teams still left in that 4th circle or so. So this is the team, of course, who did take our game number 1, Gambit Esports. You can see them dropping there onto Sorting Factory. Jumping over here to LCB as well, who are over at Survey Camp here, just getting themselves nice and looted up. And I'm sure when we get the opportunity to jump on board with one of these Pathfinder teams who does have a beacon near them as well, we're going to have a real early opportunity as we see a beautiful little purple shield popping up out of that pill, where that circle is going to be going. But early on here, not too much action. We actually are seeing some action, I should say, and it's Gambit Esports that just saw in the kill feed there, and it was Artico early on who did have a down on the board. And looking at that first circle, you can see the likes of Harvester very heavy in there as well, Train Yard, and of course you have the little Hot Springs area just below that as well. So I think teams who do have that Pathfinder beacon, and speaking of which, Pierre, he's going to be hitting that, are going to have a huge amount of information. And if my guess is anything right, I was just about to say, Pierre's done the job for me. He's just pinged where I think that circle is going to end. So a difficult one to try and fight for endgame here. You're going to have teams rotating south out of Fragment East. You're going to have teams moving through that difficult choke around Sorting Factory as well. But that end circle is pretty much in the open around those rocky areas. So maybe we're going to see teams recognize that early and look to put some aggression and KP on the board early.
Yeah, I think Fragment East is going to be a target for quite a few teams to see if they can set up there. They can kind of watch people trying to get towards the later circles and maybe just lay down some fire and then push when they have to, when the circle forces them to do so. The first engagement we saw, it was actually Fenerbahce Esports losing a member yet again. They don't seem to be able to catch a break at the moment. It seems like they dropped next to Gambit this time. And as I say that, actually, it looks like it could be another team going down. LCB here are really struggling. It's just down to the Pathfinder. Does have a little bit of weaponry to work with here, and he is going to be able to get some good shots away. So it's whether he can just clutch this up for his team. He's be able to get an armor swap, pick up another grey shield. He's getting the pings from his teammates. He has been able to get at least one down already. Is going to try and kick this door down. Can he do anything with this Mastiff is the real question. A little bit of a standoff at the moment. Is going to get pushed by the other one, though. The timing is impeccable, and this has worked out really well for TI.
Yeah, difficulty there. 1v1, Pathfinder versus Gibraltar. You've got that arm shield to work with as well. You've got that extra HP, and I think you'd rather fight any other character, to be honest with you, in a straight 1v1 than a Gibraltar. And no surprise to see that Gibby comes out on top again. And Jazz is going to be able to not only win that fight, but get all of his teammates back into the game as well. They're going to be able to loot up as well. The only problem is that early fight is going to slow down their rotation there from Survey Camp. But you can actually see, looking up at Survey Camp as well, where that fight's just gone down, a team is actually rotating in from Refinery. So we might see another battle go down as that team trying to push in on the third party, having just found that information and heard those audio cues across map.
See, this is the kind of circle that I was talking about. It's very different. Like those that have dropped on the edge of the map, they're not punished too much. They don't have to rotate too far. Yes, okay, those that are in the center of the map get somewhat of a benefit, but it just depends whether they've been able to loot up accordingly, and depends on the composition they're running. You'd imagine if you are a team that drops relatively central, you're probably going to be running a Watson because you would expect the occasional circle to be more central of it. But at the moment, looking at these boys, it's your traditional comp. We haven't seen the Revenants come into play in the early game just yet, as we get a nice little split screen as we can see two teams that are thinking about getting into an engagement here.
We could talk about the golden chopper, the golden Spitfire being used there in the loot box. Love to see that. Obviously, the Spitfire doesn't get too much love these days, obviously in competitive, but if you've got all those attachments on it, you get up nice and close, you can still rip through some shields nice and quickly. But shout out to Strafey as well, a player that we know throughout the years as well from other video games. He's made it into the alpha lobby here, and he's super happy about the fact that he's obviously managed to make it this far on the elitist team. So congratulations to him, and he's going to be wanting to make a name for himself here in Apex Legends. But Triumph here, you can see their rotation. They're going to be setting up in the little no-name area just to the north of Sorting Factory. And that's going to give them the rotation, but there's a team actually in the choke, which is just to the right of them. You can see a team in the choke towards Geyser and a team in the choke just to the east of them. They're going to be the teams who are in the best position, I believe. That choke's such a great place to try and hold out to gatekeep teams from the south side of the map. And you can see how many teams are now rotating in from the south side of the map down towards that area. That means there's going to be some action seriously going down within the next circle or so when that closes in.
Yeah, most edges of this green circle you see on the map have kind of been taken now. You can see one squad has just rotated into Fragment East, joined the other squad that was already residing there, but there's plenty of space for them to work with, and they can set up in another building as well. So those teams that are coming from the north, heading towards Fragment East, are probably going to struggle a little bit, and they'll be under fire from two teams waiting in there. There is going to be actually a battle going on here. XE are going to be able to take a little bit of damage onto the opposition here, and they are just going to Watson up in case anyone starts pushing and get aggressive. And there is going to be aggression. They want a bit of this. They want to take this spot off them and pick up some kill points.
Yeah, and Galarix here has to be careful. He had to poke out there just to get that extra 3 damage that he needed to level up that Evo shield to give them what would, you know, a little bit of a fairer fight. But it's going to be Balanji here who's pushing in. The team that we saw win the early fight with that Gibby, and it's going to be Jazz is the man who's trying to be aggressive again. And when you're looking at armor versus armor and you're looking at weaponry versus weaponry, you have to feel here that TI are the team who certainly do have the advantage. The only problem is they've got to break through these Watson fences, and there's going to be a crossfire pattern set up inside of this building. So they're going to have to be careful when they push that they don't push through the same door. They managed to get some shots down and some damage before initiating on that push, but so difficult to push a Watson up team in those buildings. And Watson, again, still showing, even with the nerfs to that ultimate, that very, very valuable character still to have in your composition.
And they still haven't been able to take down Yet they finally get Watson's ultimate, and that's why we're going to see EXE get a little bit more aggressive, because they can't just hide behind Watson's abilities anymore. But TI definitely have the armor to work with. Mastiff's going to do some real damage at the moment, and they are out for blood. They've been able to take 1, 2, 3, and it's EXE eliminated. Kill leader goes over to Balanji, and they've done really well to be patient there. They've waited. They've just been able to take out the ultimate of Watson, and as soon as they had done so, that's when they went for blood. That's when they were able to push in. It was quite a long fight. I'm surprised that there was no third party, no one else got involved. It means they can loot up comfortably now, and they are very close to this next circle, so they shouldn't have to worry too much about a rotation.
Well, yeah, 1, 2, 3 drop to Balanji. That was EXE. It all rhymes, Dan, and that's the wonderful thing about that kind of push. You know what I mean? When just everything lines up beautifully, and kill leader now actually going to be Balanji, who is the man with 3 kills to his name. As we now move over to Harvester, we can see a couple of teams set up here who don't have that Pathfinder beacon as well. So you can see they do have the Gibraltar, more than happy to play edge with that dome opportunity that they have to lock down a position for a few moments. You can see with the Watson as well, a very defensive composition here for this team. So no surprise to see them playing edge circle, and they're not going to be too devastating when they do see that ring pull. They're still going to make their move, of course, with 2 minutes and 25 seconds on the clock until ring number 2 is going to close into that next circle. But they can play it patient, they can play it calm, and maybe just wait for that team across from them to make a little bit of a mistake, and they can gatekeep them out and pick up some KP.
A lot more squads left at this moment than there was in the previous match, where we saw quite a lot of early eliminations. And again, that might have just been down to the very southern circle that kind of forced teams to traverse the map, a lot of the map if they were from the north side. But Strafe has been able to spot a team potentially here. That was the one team that we knew was already setting up. But it's going to be a question of, will they go for that fight? They don't really have to. And I think that is going to be a big question for a lot of these teams on this particular match with the circle where it is. Do we need to go for this fight? Are we at risk of a third party if we push in or not? And as we say that, there is going to be a very interesting engagement here. And it looks like Zanya is going to be backing out of this one.
Yeah, they're going to have to back down pretty quickly here as we see a little quick scope from the triple take. Not the best of weaponry to have in this kind of position, but with 18 squads remaining, no surprise to see people still maybe on their early loot drops as far as what they picked up on their POI from where they dropped, with not many teams being taken down and being able to salvage that loot for themselves. But Natsuki, Strafe, and Dell, for me, are going to be the team with the best position on the map here, holding down that choke and gatekeeping all those teams out who are going to have to rotate in and fight each other from the south of the map through Sorting Factory. So they're in a great position to not only be in a good place for that end circle, but of course to pick up those KP as damage is being done to other teams. But now we're going to see a little bit of trouble here for the squad. It's going to be Zanayan and the guys who are taken down. Not a successful rotation for them, just absolutely melted. As we now see Flavor of the Month, a team who rotated from Lava City all the way up north into Fragment East, I believe, where they were there to find a position to give themselves access to that next circle where it might be closing. So a big rotation from them made early on. And they're in a nice position as well as far as leaderboards from that first game are concerned. So they can play the long game here, just wait for other teams to engage, maybe look to pick up some third parties. Yeah,
prime position, I'd say, Fragment East at the moment. And you can see how they're just looking through all the nooks and crannies to try and get any information of where teams might be pushing by. But they can kind of wait at the moment. They can just have a little scout around. They can be patient, wait for this next circle. They don't have to worry about moving whatsoever. Until that next circle comes in and forces them out, they can just be so patient, bide their time, and then they'll choose to pick an engagement when one comes close. They've got the Revenant, they've got the ability to get aggressive when needs be. But they're very smart players that, I mean, we've seen for quite some time, and here comes the ultimate. They obviously have smelt something, and they're going to head over to maybe an engagement here.
So you can see YDN here, only white armors to speak of here for them. Pierre's going to be taken down. He's only got a few little ticks here of dead protection, but R3 or one-shots are absolutely beautiful, and now he's going to be pushing in aggressively. They want this position under the bridge, and using that Revenant ultimate to get into that position to make that push. He gets returned to the totem, but it's going to be Noth who's still in position to maybe finish off those fights. I just wonder if they've got enough space between them and the push here from Flavor of the Month to retreat and maybe push them back, but they did manage to get 2 downs, I believe, so there's only one player who's left alive, and what a push that is, and that is the power there of the Revenant ult. As long as you've got enough or not too much space between the push and where the team is and where your totem is dropped, when you get returned, you can quickly make up that ground and then finish off those players. Big push there, kill points once again on the board for the team running the Revenant comp.
Did they leave themselves too vulnerable, though? They were getting pushed by another team. OS here have been able to get a couple of downs, but it looks like KJ's going to really be struggling. Tries to portal away at this point. Mistral is also just trying to get out of dodge at the same time. So both of these players desperately trying to escape. Flavor of the Month are under fire. I don't know if it was Gambit that was pushing on them, so that's going to be interesting if it was. Two very aggressive teams have been able to succeed so far. Two players of Flavor of the Month go down. It's going to be all down to Taylor at this point. Is he just going to opt to try and survive and try and rat it out? It looks like the answer to that question is a firm yes, but he is being chased viciously by TI of all teams.
Yeah, third Impact Black again, just being super, super aggressive. Every time they see an opportunity to push, they've executed beautifully well on the R9 shots there. Only a grey barrel to speak of, but it looked like a gold one there, to be honest with you. Just absolutely lasering that player, as Taylor is going to be able to stay alive here for Flavor of the Month. The only problem is he's got teams all around him in this particular position he's found himself in, and now he just has to desperately try and find a rat spot and just survive as long as he can and hope that other teams take themselves out as he rats into a higher placement.
That was my only worry with the push from Flavor of the Month and trying to take this position under the bridges. They did leave themselves a little bit more vulnerable than when they were where they were in Fragment East, but I guess they were thinking of the long game. They were thinking of trying to push towards this position, and it would be a better place to be moving into the next circle that comes through. But either way, hindsight, don't really need to be thinking about it. They made that choice. It worked out for the initial engagement, but they just got third-partied before they were able to really set up. Legit Lolly, Messenger and the boys, they've been able to loot up after a fight as well here. 14 squads remaining at the moment. They are just going to be set up, but they do have to move. You can see 30 seconds until this next circle is going to be moving. And third Impact, well, they are geared to the gillies. Gold armor to work with, 2 purple shields as well. So I think they're in a comfortable spot for the rest of this game.
I'll tell you who isn't going to be comfortable, though, is any teams going through chokes at the moment, because you can see multiple teams being forced to make their way through difficult chokes here on World's Edge towards that next circle. Alliance is the team who are going to be one of those teams who has to make that rotation as well. You can see IPN manages to get the recharge and the bat off on his shields, and Vaves is desperately trying to get some armor on his side as well. They do have the Gibraltar to work with as well, so they can afford to drop down low here, and that looks like the play that they're going to try and execute, but they need to get these heals off. The Phoenix will come in, and now you can see Hackis leading the way on the Wraith, trying to find a position for them to try and hold down as the portal goes out. I think he's going to try and get maybe into this Dorito building, maybe underneath it. It looks like the Dorito building is actually free, so this is a free rotation here for Alliance. Fantastic play from them and great play from Hackis here to spot that information out and get his team into a safe position.
And it's a really scary composition from Alliance as well. It's Hackis that just gets absolutely melted there, but at least he was able to do some damage with the Molotov coming out. But they have the Gibby, they have the Caustic, they have the ability to hold down these buildings. They can be a real nuisance to teams trying to push on and trying to take any sort of space off them. But they are under fire at the moment. There are teams that definitely saw them head into that Dorito building, as you say, and they still have to rotate northeast as the massive shots come out for Triumph. They're able to take down Zipeth goes down. He's the final one from him and Pepe Gega's team. And Triumph pick up some decent amount of points. They needed them as well. I said this was a team I was looking forward to seeing what they had to offer, and they're playing a lot better in this second match.
So you can see the posture in there of all the teams playing right on the edge of the map, and no surprise to see that with the fact that where they believe that final circle is going to be ending is open ground. So it's going to be teams just trying to find locations, scraping into that next ring. But one team that's going to have to make a pretty hard rotation in here is Triumph. But do have some KP to their name already in this game. Like we've mentioned, just managed to win that previous team fight that we saw them involved with. But 10 squads remaining now. 1 minute and 10 seconds until we are going to see that ring move. And just looking across their composition at the moment, don't have the Gibraltar to work with, so I wouldn't be surprised here to see Triumph really try and get aggressive and get some kill KP on the board, because their rotation is going to be extremely tough as this push is now going to be coming in behind them. The Gibraltar bubble is going up, but great shots, defensive shots here from Graceful just to slow that down a little bit and allow him and his team to just get some shielding off. And it's Alliance who are the team who are actually pushing behind them, but IPN on the Caustic, he's having to eat all kinds of shots as he's getting rained down on from above.
Yeah, Triumph's hand, they got forced, really. They probably wanted to rotate slowly, but Alliance came from behind, and they were the ones who got aggressive on them. But they've been able to do enough defensively to push Alliance away. They can retreat, they get some decent damage, and they should be able to pick up some kill points, to be honest, if they can hit some shots here. Alliance are going to struggle to get into this next circle. You see Ku was taken down, IPN goes, he falls, Vaves is going to be the next one, Hackies is going to be the last, and unless he does something special, it's probably going to be Alliance wiped out in the top 10. Does go into the void, will survive for a little bit, and Triumph, well, they need to think about their own rotation here. Even though they've been able to pick up some big kill points, which is very important considering this rotation is going to be tough for them, they have to be able to find a way to worm into this next circle.
Yeah, the big thing for them, though, is they managed to clear out their back, so they know now there isn't going to be a team rotating late in behind them, and you can see VAU here is going to have to use his zip line to just try and stay alive inside that circle. Keeping my eye on the kill feed, he is going to fall to the hands of the ring moving in. Gambit Esports, though, they've moved into this compound here around the crates and the fences to try and get an early position for that end circle. The only problem is there's a Gibby bombardment coming down, there's grenades coming down around them, and of course Nasky has got that Prowler in his hands as well, so they're going to have to retreat pretty quickly as teams are going to be dropping, and Gambit will be eliminated here as we're now down to 7 squads remaining, and it's going to be Nasky, Strafe, and Dell who had that strong position in the choke early on here on World's Edge, who are in a fantastic position to potentially win this game.
Yeah, down to 7 squads now, and we saw the damage of not having a Gibby, being able to pop a bubble to protect yourself, and also not even Watson's ultimate was available for them as well. Here's the Elitist boys that you were talking about earlier. They found themselves into Fragment East very early on, and they do have a building to work with, so they are just putting down some suppressing fire onto other teams at the moment, being a real nuisance to those trying to break into this next circle. Horizon will take down Big Wolf, though, so he's going to be the first to fall from Elitist, so they need to be a little bit careful here with this push. They're probably going to have to take this fight if they're going to survive and be able to push onto the next circle.
But here comes the third party, and the Peacekeeper in the hands here of Sivan from YDN. Needs to hit this shot, however, desperately trying to finish off that player. Does have the Evo shield that he managed to get in that battle and get that swap off, but the player above him, who I believe was a Wraith, managed to get a swap off himself, so he's going to have to be the player here who has to do this damage, and the problem for him is he's got 30 seconds to do so, because him and his team are going to have to make a quick rotation towards that end circle if they don't get taken down beforehand.
Some people work better with time against them, just like me with my coursework at university. One goes down, Nuke is going to be able to take down Seal at the same time, but Nuke is the first one to fall. If they can get him back up, then they can do some real damage here. The revive should be able to come through, but Horizon has to do some real damage to protect him here, which I think he has done. And I'm seeing on my kill feed, Flavor of the Month Taylor still alive, still getting kills, and Flavor of the Month are into the top 5.
Yeah, big stuff here from Taylor, getting that position and managing to stay in a position to not only rat out for placement, but getting an extra KP on the board is so big. But this is the team, Third Impact Black, who have really impressed me so far in this second game. They're one of the teams still involved in the conversation of who is going to take home game number 2. Triumph are as well, and Nasky, Strafe, and Dell again coming under pressure, and it's going to be Nasky who's the last player alive as the Watson gets wiped off the face of World's Edge, and Triumph now in a fantastic position to close out this game as we have 3 squads now remaining.
Yeah, they've got a wall to work with, but they are under a little bit of pressure here. It does have the Mastiff to work with. It is going to be Third Impact that are going to be there to do the damage. They've got the Molotovs as well. They've got everything they need, but the Gibby does fall, and we need to see some big shots be hit by Balanji at the moment. Doesn't have the armor, but he can shield up if he has time to here.
They managed to win that fight pretty comfortably in the end, even though it got a little bit wobbly at one point, and I think it's only one player alive. It is Taylor, who we said earlier from Flavor of the Month, managed to do some magical things, and he finishes off that little spell in game number 2 with a second place placement. But what a performance there from Third Impact. They managed to take home your game number 2, and they had plenty of KP to go along with it. Very interesting game, that one, Dan. And again, Europe showing that early rotation style that they like to employ is still carrying over here, even with all of those recent meta changes.
Taylor. He was able to rat away, and then I saw him sneak into the top 10, and then I was just seeing him pop up on the kill feed a couple of times, just catching out other rats that had been finding their way into the later circles, and then to get second as well. I mean, he's done amazing for Flavor of the Month there after they had that push, and then they unfortunately found themselves getting third party. So that's what you need from one of your players, like someone who can just outright slay and survive at the same time. That's going to be huge points for Flavor of the Month, but you're completely right. Third Impact just showing how impressive they can be in this lobby.
It was just funny to watch at the end as well when he realized he was the 1 versus the 3. They just ran up the hill at him. It's like, come at me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to win this, no problem. Unfortunately for him, didn't quite work out that way. No surprise to see that, but a fantastic performance from Flavor of the Month Taylor, like you mentioned, to get into that second place. But I want to look at our leaderboards when we have them available, because the amount of KP that were put on the board by our winning team there was really interesting for me. And as we see now, we're going to have one more game on World's Edge. It could be World's Edge which makes the difference here for these teams, because, you know, if you get a great position on World's Edge, you know, you hold it down, you get good KP on the board. It's much easier, in my opinion, to do that if you get a good early position on World's Edge than it is over on Kings Canyon. So as we take a look at the highlights here, you have to feel like the teams who maybe put in a lot of the heavy work here and put in a couple of big games here on World's Edge really are setting themselves up for success here as we move over to Kings Canyon in our final 3 games.
I think that's the exciting thing about Kings Canyon being the latter half of today's show, is because you're going to see the teams that are at the bottom, in the bottom 5, thinking, all right, maybe we need to get aggressive. And you're going to see the teams that have been succeeding in the top 5 that will probably be thinking, well, we could probably afford to get aggressive. So then we're just going to see so much sheer aggression between the top half and the bottom half that we might just see everyone colliding right at the start of Kings Canyon. And it might mean for a slow mid game, but certainly early and late game, it'll be very, very exciting.
These are the final moments. We see 5 squads remaining here as JMW here on Triumph hit some nice massive shots, and another beautiful one there to take down Dell as Nasky, Strafe, and Dell with the team to finish. And there is the final shot that took out Poor Taylor from Flavor of the Month. I say Poor Taylor, he did amazingly to get into second position from where they were as a wrap from, I believe, top 15 when they were 2 teammates were taken down. So congratulations there. But for game number 3, it's really interesting to see how Europe have kind of continued with what I would describe as a more traditional Apex playstyle, what they've done in previous tournaments, you know, an early rotation or an edge team. You kind of one of the two. We're not seeing a lot of Revenant. I think we've only seen it on one team, which is Flavor of the Month, which is a surprise to me. No crypto either at all from teams. So it seems like Europe is sticking to what they know, that kind of traditional route that's brought them success so far. And no surprise to see the teams who have had success previously also up at the top of the leaderboards once again.
That's what I was saying earlier about comfort and not just switching for the sake of it because another region does or a different team does and they find success. You still need to find time to be able to practice it, and this might be the wrong time to put that practice in place. You might want to be focusing on this tournament and just trying to get to those finals before you even think about switching compositions. Maybe in between weeks we might see shifts of people changing things up when they have more time to practice stuff. But yeah, I think you're right. Like one, maybe I think we've seen 2 Revenants at most. We saw the one on Bodyguards as well with their kind of off composition, but no cryptos does surprise me. I thought we might see like a couple pop up, but traditional games on World's Edge, but I think they go to Kings Canyon.
Well, that's going to do it all for our game number 2. We're going to take a very quick break now, but when we get back after the break, we'll have our final game on World's Edge. Don't miss it. We'll be back soon. Hey everybody, welcome back to the GLL Masters Summer Series, and of course we're back here, we're ready for game number 3 after Third Impact took home our game number 2 in a huge performance there, Dan. Arguably one of the most dominating ones we've seen so far today.
Yeah, they were the team that were kind of in the right places at the right time. They were pushing it at the exact right moments. They were third-partying teams as well, and they just looked so strong. They were hitting all their shots, and they looked like a force to be reckoned with. It was a central circle, so it wasn't like they had some sort of benefit from where the circle was going either. So I'm excited to see what they do in game number 3, to be honest.
Yeah, I believe they actually drop over at Refinery as well. So pretty deep rotation for them to have to make from the edge of the map to obviously that central circle. And I'm sure that they've got their fingers crossed after the first game was obviously around the dome area for a little bit more of a northern pull-in circle, so they can really try and put themselves in a position to extend their lead. But I mean, it was an interesting game, and of course now we go into our game number 3, which is you know, our last game that we have on World's Edge. And as we go into our game number 3, this is what the leaderboard is looking like in our alpha lobby. Third Impact, a big game from them in that match number 2. 24 points on the board. Of course, they're doubled here in our alpha lobby, so a 50-point game from them. Triumph Gaming coming in second, putting some decent KP on the board as well.
Yeah, you can see our Flavor of the Month were able to get all the way up there with those placement points and kill points that we just saw such an impressive ability from Taylor to be able to do so after his teammates were eliminated fairly early on. Alliance didn't get those placement points, but they picked up a lot of kills, and that's what matters. They certainly will be looking to try and get a little bit further than they have in the previous 2, but they're still doing enough damage. I think that's what's important. As long as you are still picking up a decent amount of kill points, you're going to find yourself at the top half of that table. Remember, all these points are doubled as well when it comes to the overall leaderboard. The fact that there is an Alpha and a Bravo division, and the bottom 5 after today's play will be relegated into that Bravo division. So we're looking at the likes of Fenerbahce, Execute, Lava City Boys, Outsiders, and Bodyguards. They are the teams that are in the danger zone right now of being relegated. They haven't been able to pick up much points at all. I mean, if you look at Fenerbahce and Execute, they haven't picked up any points whatsoever. So we need to see something very different from them in game number 3.
Well, let's look at the top of this leaderboard. As you can see, Third Impact, after that big game number 2, have squeaked into the lead by just 2 points. Flavor of the month, the big performance. Speaking of squeaking, you know, Taylor managed to squeak into that second place, playing as the lone player from, I believe, around the top 15 squad still remaining. So a big performance from Taylor there, placement points-wise, means that they are now in second place and in a great position to mount somewhat of a impactful performance, should we say, here on Third Impact. That was not meant to be a pun because it was terrible, but they're actually going to be dropping not at Refinery like I initially said that they were. It looks like Epicenter and Survey Camp is going to be the area that they might try and lock down after they clear out Epicenter on this loot path. But as I say, final game here on World's Edge, and we can see a big pull here to the west side of the map, and it looks like Train Yard could potentially be one of those end circles, or maybe you can see the ping there coming in from, I believe, Pierre here, who's saying he thinks it's going to end just on those tracks, maybe just above where that little intersection is of the train tracks.
Yeah, so those teams down at Dome, Overlook, that do have the ability to see where that circle's going to go, will be able to see they have a long old rotation, as we do have Outsiders who are already losing 1 player here. They're already in trouble here at Tree, so it's going to be a big task for Mistral to actually try and survive here alongside his teammate. The Pathfinder is going to have the ability to fire a couple of shots off. At least he does have the wingman to work with, but it's not going to be enough. And Fenerbahce, well, we said they had no points, but it looks like they are going to be picking up some points here. They've stuck to their guns. They've dropped Tree again. This time they've been able to win the early fight.
Yeah, and Pinky Finky, just had to say it. I just wanted to say it. I didn't really do anything from what I saw in the kill feed, but I just wanted to say it. It's good to see Fenerbahce. You know, they were one of those teams that we mentioned previously as we were talking through the leaderboards, you know, at the bottom at the moment, really do desperately need to get points on the board, so they're trying to finish off this final player here from Outsiders, who I think has managed to just about squeak away and stay alive. But a couple of KP on the board for them, not only good for their placement, of course, as far as the leaderboard is concerned, but confidence-wise, Dan, getting into a game here, because they really have struggled in those first 2.
Well, when they look at those leaderboards, they were, what, 8 points behind the team that is currently in 15th. So they need at least just 1 game to take them out of this relegation zone, as it were. Now, Fenerbahce, the Turkish side, were a squad that I was highlighting because they did win the EMEA qualifiers to get here. They won 3 out of their 7 games, and in the others, they were finishing 2nd, 3rd. They were really dominating their region. But they just haven't really had, I don't want to say the luck in the early stages. They just haven't won the early engagements. They've been dropping, they've been contested, and that's what happens when you have a different region kind of joining another region. You've gone from qualifiers where maybe they've been dropping Tree every time and no one's been contesting them, but now they've got all these European teams that are coming into the equation and they're spoiling their fun. But at least it's worked out in this 3rd match. Finally on World's Edge, they've been able to do something at Tree.
LCB are going to be making their way from the north side of the map down here into Fragment West. And we saw Third Impact as well, the team who's currently sat at the top of the leaderboards, setting a beautiful little baited trap in that building just to the east of them, just waiting for anyone to walk in and just crossfire them and get some easy KP on the board. And now we're going to move over to watch Sanya, Rugby, and Zanaya as they're set up here around the drill site. And this is a good place to be, as we saw where that early circle was going. EXE set up on the truck here as well, just to the east of where that location is at drill site, and they're going to have to make a rotation in as well. And it looks like they might think it's actually ending up on the truck here, so a good place for them to try and hold down early. I think the only problem for them is it might potentially pull away from that. We'll have to see where that next circle closes, because that's going to give them a lot of information. But that truck is a solid place to try and hold down, because we do see end circles ending around that area.
Finalize just looking at getting out of Skyhook at the moment. Putting fences both sides just in case they get pushed from either side at the moment. But I guess that is the benefit of having a Watson, is you can protect yourself from several different areas. But it looks like they're just going to hold down this area for now. Hold off this choke, maybe catch anyone coming through Skyhook, or coming out of Skyhook, should I say. Major pushers, well, they're not doing much pushing at the moment. They're just going to reside here on top of Train Yard and try and survive as we move over to Gambit. They've lost 1 member already. And Pepega Gibbo, well, they're laying down some fire to those boys who are on top of Train Yard.
Yeah, of course, Gambit were the team who took home our first game here. So a little bit of a surprise to see them dropping so early, but we know how talented the players are, the likes of Matafe, the likes of Kuya, the likes of Zipeth on that squad that did manage to take them down or at least get them involved in a battle. So just the one squad has been wiped so far as round one is about to close. On board with Gambit Esports here, who haven't managed to recover the banner here of Artico, and it looks like they are going to try and make that play to get that banner back, as going to be Hardeki who does manage to get that back, and they shouldn't have too much of a problem here to get him back into the game. Obviously just 2 minutes 30 still left on ring number one, so there's going to be lots of respawn beacons available to them. The only problem is that is going to slow down their rotation to where they'll want to be on the map.
Beacon's going to be there. It's going to be available for them to use, but of course it is going to bring a lot of attention that they probably don't want. I mean, I would say a lot of the times you can get away with like the one respawn if it is early on, because people are like, it's not worth going for it and giving up our position or giving up how much of a rotation we've been able to make and the progress we've made so far. It's just whether you get caught by someone who's rotating and they happen to see you as they're moving through in that direction. So sometimes it's just about the timing. It's Outsiders and Lava City Boys that have been taken out. Lava City Boys were one of those teams that were in the bottom 5 after the first 2 matches. So they are still going to find themselves in that relegation zone, and they're going to have to go to Kings Canyon to be able to make up any lost ground so far.
I'm pretty sure Outsiders were involved in that conversation as well, around that bottom 5. So they're certainly going to have their work cut out for them as we move over to Kings Canyon as well. But interesting to see where that next circle is. You can see Trainyard, again, very heavily involved. That Pathfinder Beacon giving that information as we see the portal go out here as they're trying to find a rotation into a better position from the Trainyard. And it looks like they're pretty comfortable with the fact that it might not be ending around Trainyard. And the difficulty is if you kind of put all your eggs in one basket up in one of those carriages that's above the area of Trainyard, I mean, if you've got to make that rotation out and you've got teams holding you out, it can be a difficult place to rotate into with so many teams set up in front of you. So they're going to have to make a decision here. Nasky, Strafe, and Nasky, Strafe, and Del, excuse me. Del has no R in his name that I just decided to insert in there for no reason whatsoever. But it looks like they're pretty confident here with their setup and where they're holding down. So Watson ult will go down. See, only 90 seconds on that ultimate now to work with. Gold Helmet going to be passed off there to Del as well, I believe, to get his portal back up to help them indicate their next rotation, as we see Fenerbahce now, Dan, getting involved in yet another fight.
Oh no, Pinky Finky, your favorite, he's gone down. Prose as well is going to forward. It's going to be Draconian left. And it looks like Alliance are going to be the ones who are making this a bad old day for Fenerbahce. They're having a little search to see if they can find the last solo remaining player. The other 2 were taken out, and there is going to be the shots going down, and those up in the carriage have had a little bit of trouble here. They were joined, and Pepe Jaeger is still putting down fire from the outside as well, just being a real nuisance. But Draconian has been able to survive at the very least for Fenerbahce, so at least some good news if you are fans.
Yeah, and Alliance now being forced to back up, and it's just a train of portals here. Choo-choo all the way back for IPN, as he's looking to get a Phoenix kit off. 2 minutes 24 to play with, but it looks like there is a team trying to hold them out there on that choke, and I just wanted to see if that team was completely eliminated, as we see the team tracker. Major Pushers were the team that were taken down, and I believe Nasky, Strafe, and Del were the team who managed to do so. So KP on the board for them, excuse me, pretty early on in this game. It's surprising to see so many fights, as we only have that second ring closing here, but teams obviously jockeying for position. Or is it a case of Nasky, Strafe, and Del deciding they want those KP on the board to push them up the leaderboard?
I'm just enjoying the irony that Major Pushers were kind of turtled up and were pushed themselves. That seems to have happened quite a lot, and maybe they should go for a different team name, but who knows. BDS at the moment, they've been able to set up their into the next circle at the very least, but it does look like they are being shot from various different angles, but they should be fine. There's enough distance between them and the other teams that they kind of reposition at the moment, but just need to be careful. You don't want to use too much of your healing possibilities, too much cells right now. You want to save those for a little bit later on. So that's why he's going to get out of dodge. And it is going to be Papega Gibbo that are going to be the team that are challenging them at the moment. And I have said that correctly for the first time. That's another team name I just can't seem to say, Mark.
I'm really happy that you brought that up, because I was about to roast you. So,
Wait,
but you've managed to get... No, it's fine. You've managed to get it right. It's fine. I didn't do it. You roasted yourself. We're all good. And it was Nasky, Strafe, and Del who have managed to get set up in this top carriage here and get a position to potentially rotate from. And they were the team who managed to get some KP on the board as well. So good start for them. We saw how strong a position they managed to get early game in our previous game when they were holding down that choke between a little no-name area between Sorting Factory and, of course, Fragment East, where that little choke is. So flavor of the month then. They're currently set up on Mirage Voyage, but they're going to have to dance their way down into a different position pretty soon-ish if they want to get into a position to potentially win this game. And they're playing right on the edge of that circle. Pathfinder and the Revenant, obviously something new for them after the recent patch. And you can see Kuya now. He's having to grapple back into a position, as it looks like they're coming under fire here. And not many of those flatline shots are hitting. So difficult to hit those shots without an optic sight on that gun. Just such a difficult... I don't know what it is about it, but difficult to line up those shots, as Matafe is actually going to be taken down here. It looks like that team is actually going to be dropping below, and it's going to be Sati there from BTS. He manages to get the down, but the Gibby bubble will go up, and Kuya's going to have to be careful here, trying to desperately shoot to give the time there for Matafe to get rezzed by Zippeth, and then managing to retreat, and it looks like they'll live to fight another day here.
Yeah, it was an interesting play from Matafe, but he's basically done that to protect his teammates. He saw both of them get their shields completely wiped, so he felt like he had to get aggressive, otherwise they may have just all got wiped completely. So even though, yes, okay, he went down, it was actually a really smart play. He did enough just to force the other team back. He went down, but the res came through from the Gibby. So decent stuff from Matafe and that team in general. Papega, I mean, it's a team we should be expecting to get to the latter stages of games with the sheer amount of firepower they have, as bodyguards are desperately trying to survive. They're going to have to go into the lava here just to try and get out of these shots that are coming from above. And BDS, are they going to chase them? That's the real question.
You know, they look like they're on the hunt right now. They're desperately trying to find them. And unfortunately for them, it means that Cyclops actually going to get picked here, as he was trying to make that play. And it's Zippeth from Papega Gibbo who manages to pick up that kill. And now with the circle closing, I think BDS have put themselves between a little bit of a rock and a hard place here. Pretty poor rotational decision from them. And now it's going to be Ziki who manages to get one down here. Another player is going to be coming in as well. And that's going to be an easy down for him. Matafe, though, manages to get back into the action as we swap over here to Papega Gibbo again. 2 minutes and 5 seconds as we see ring number 3 start to close now, and things are starting to get a little bit spicy here in game number 3. 14 squads remaining. A lot of action already gone down here on World's Edge.
Yeah, that's why we're seeing so many fights, as people desperately trying to rotate into the next circle. Elitists are going to have control of this tunnel, which is great. They can watch behind, but as soon as they push through, they are still not going to be in the next circle as well. So they need to win this engagement. They need to win it fast so they can loot up accordingly and then be able to potentially push into the next one. They've been able to do enough damage. They've been able to lay down enough fire to at least make the other team somewhat retreat. Can they pick up these kills here? Because the team is just going to be running right into the next, well, back into the red, to be honest, Mark.
And I'm watching the kill feed as well, because as Elitists make this push and they manage to finish off this team, it looks like Zippeth is picking up some kills of his own in the feed with the Mastiff, and Matafe was in there as well. So Matafe and the boys having a pretty good game here in our game number 3 here on World's Edge, and they needed to, because they haven't maybe performed up to the standards that they would expect of themselves in our first 2 games. But as I say, not only do we have this game to play with, 3 more games on Kings Canyon to come, as well as we see YDN and BDS, the team who were leading the tournament after game number 1, or league day 1, I should say, after game number 1, once again eliminated early.
It was Figvam that was the other team in the tunnel. It was just the one player that went down. The other 2 were able to get away and survive, but I feel like they have to go a long way round, potentially through the red, just to be able to survive. So it's going to be a difficult route in for them, but at least they were able to escape with 2 of their lives for now. Alliance in Train Yard just going to be setting up with caustic traps. They are pinging just because they know there are teams above them. So they are going to be at risk of being rained down from above. So they do have to be a little bit careful here. Maybe they're trying to be a little bit quiet. There is Figvan. FGM have been able to work their way around. They didn't quite have to go into the red. So even though they didn't go through the circle, they were able to find themselves into this little choke point here. But that is a lot of field to cover. And you can see 2 teams in drill site that may see them crossing that.
Flavor of the month then still chilling up here on Mirage Voyage and coming under fire as well. And it's point now where they're going to have to rotate. You can see as that ring closes, they're going to have to move off of Mirage Voyage into a different position here to try and stay alive and avoid any of those teams who might be trying to hold them out. You can see the shots that were coming in onto the Flavor of the Month players as they were just trying to peek. So obviously a little bit of a difficult rotation into that next zone for them. A little bit more difficult maybe than they were expecting, but now we're going to see Elitist once again coming under fire, trying to get involved as we see Sanya and the boys getting involved themselves. Big shots here coming in from Big Wolf. He's going to be able to get the finish, hopefully. Will he be able to get the armor swap? He can't actually get the finish, and he's still under pressure, desperately trying to finish off this player. Can he get the swap off in time? Switch back to the Mastiff, but no, we actually switch away from that fight just as it's about to be finished, as now we're going to see Sanya, Rugby, and Sanya in a position to try and maybe think about getting into a position to get their teammate up, but it looks like this is a really tough position for them to find themselves in. Sanya's going to come in with the Gibraltar bubble and be able to get him back in the game, so Sanya's going to be able to fight another day, but it looks like Rugby, unfortunately for him, he falls, and that means they'll be playing this game out as a duo.
Big Wolf was eliminated as well on the kill feed. He huffed and he puffed, but he couldn't get the armor swap, but Kua here are desperately trying to survive. It's just going to be Zanya on his own. On their own, and it's going to be the Watson as well. This is really tough for them. Maybe you can try and get a res here, but it's going to be Figvam that are going to be applying the suppressing fire at the moment, making things so difficult to even get this resurrection, let alone push towards the next circle.
I just keep seeing Nasky, Strafe, and Del in that kill feed. We can see it's Del who managed to get the finish onto Sanya there. So as we look at our team tracker now, Alliance still involved, Elite Gaming, RSA, our South African team still involved as well, Execute, Figvam, Flavor of the Month, Gambit Esports, Nasky Strafe, and Del, Papega, Gibbo, and Triumph are our final teams left in the lobby, but only 9 squads remaining here, and such a change in pace to what we have seen in the previous games here in Europe. It seems like everybody wants to play for those KP, get nice and aggressive, and push themselves up the leaderboard before Kings Canyon.
I'm all for it. I want to see more fights. And Papega, Gibbo, well, it looks like they're looking for more as well. Tossing a few grenades to see if they can catch anyone hiding out in the vans. They certainly see the Watson traps. They know there's the potential that someone is them. And, well, Kua has been able to spot a couple of people out here. As Nask, Strafe, and Del are going to be getting aggressive. And it's going to be EXC on the receiving end of this aggression as well. So they're able to pick up a couple more kill points. That's going to be a decent amount for them so far. And they're into the top 8 now, so placement points are available for them. Triumph are still alive, Gambit still alive, Alliance still there. But I think the big one, you're completely right, Elite Gaming, the South African team here, have been able to crawl their way into the top 8. They are a team I was really looking at to see how they would be able to survive this lobby, and they've done so well in this third match.
On board with Triumph then, a team who have performed extremely well so far in our first 2 games. They're set up just on the eastern side of this zone as Alliance now make their push, as Shambi is going to be taken out here by Vaves, and Gibby Bubble's going to be coming up, and I think they're more than aware that there might be a third party coming in. There's a rogue Pathfinder above them, I believe, but it looks like he's back down, and they're going to take that opportunity here to pop those batteries, and they managed to get a full heal off. So good job from Alliance there to not only pick up some KP, as we see. It's actually Strafe and Del who are going to be taken down by Alliance, so they're going to be in a great position, not only taking out a team who are putting them under pressure down, but taking out one of those teams around them in the leaderboards is huge for them being able to move up as we enter the Kings Canyon after this game is done.
It was just Nasky was the last remaining player on that side. Elite Gaming have just been taken out. They finished in the top 8. Triumph under a lot of fire as well. It's going to be Mady on his own. He does have a Mastiff to work with, but is he going to be able to do any damage? No, he gets shot from every single angle possible. Alliance are able to pick up yet another, and now we're down to just 4 squads here on World's Edge.
This is a big game here for Flavor of the Month as well. Still involved. You can see it's going to be Taylor once again, who seems to just be the catalyst for them. Picks up a down onto Artico in the feed. Alliance setting up those caustic traps. The problem is they've got to traverse some ground. They do have the Gibraltar to work with, though, so they can get that bubble up. But it's about timing now for Alliance. Can they close this gap onto these teams? Can they get into a position where they can throw that Gibby bubble down into that circle and engage on those fights? And Flavor of the Month now. They're set down, and they're in the power position here. They're the only team, really, having rotated from Mirage Voyage, who are inside this little compound. So the 2 teams in front of them, they're the ones who have got to fight and make that rotation. Alliance now actually going to be looking to play maybe this corner. I don't know if that's in the next circle or not. I don't think it is, but the portal's going to come out as they make their rotation, and they're going to be running straight into the team who's holding them down here, and that's going to be, of course, Papega Gibbo.
Papega Gibbo are going to be laying down some fire. Hackers will go down, so it's going to be 3 versus 2, and now whether Flavor of the Month are going to catch wind of this and maybe push and get aggressive with their Revenant, or whether they'll just wait out. I think they're in such a prime position now that they don't have to push straight away. Papega Gibbo are going to be getting really aggressive here. They've done so much damage already, but Kuya is going to go down. It's going to be Zippeth and Matafi. Matafi falls as well, and Flavor of the Month have been able to just rinse them as they come through the circle, and then it's going to be 2 squads remaining. Flavor of the Month, they are in prime position to win this game.
Yeah, the last team is going to be Alliance. And look at this late rotation. Are they going to be able to make it in? Yes, they are. They get the Gibby bubble down as well. So a desperate last-minute rotation here from Alliance might put them in a position, even though they've taken that health damage, to really cause a problem here for Flavor of the Month. The shots here from IPN are absolutely beautiful. And look at that push. Alliance surprising everyone by rotating through the gas as one of the last two teams alive. You saw Flavor of the Month. They did not expect that push to come in from the way it did. Alliance made the call, made the play, and they will win your game number 3.
Yeah, Alliance just looked like they were running into so much trouble with Pepega, but then because Pepega turned on them, did some damage, they let Flavor of the Month know where they were going to be. So Flavor of the Month said, okay, well, we're just going to shoot you as you're coming into the circle. And then I don't think they realized where Alliance were actually coming from. An amazing push from Alliance and great just last minute decision making. Like, credit to the in-game leader for being able to recognize when they needed to retreat from the fight and when they were able to push from the fight. But again, Alliance and Flavor of the Month, two of our top teams at the moment, as we expected going into this. But still is going to be about that bottom 5 for me. Those teams that were on that relegation zone, how did they fare in the third match? For example, Fenerbahce, they picked up a couple of points, but I don't think it'll be enough to take them out of those relegation spots. So we've got our front runners at the moment. We know how well they're kind of succeeding, and they're certainly going to put themselves in a great spot for getting a decent amount of points, getting closer to those finals. But it's those teams at the bottom 5 that are going to be starting to quake in their boots as we move over to Kings Canyon for the second half of the day.
I'm just still a little bit taken aback by that push from Alliance, and you can understand why Flavor of the Month were caught off guard so heavily. I mean, you've just killed a team that were in the gas and were pushing, you know, towards where you were and taking them down pretty comfortably. The last thing you expect to see is another team pushing from the same direction, even later taking damage from the ring. So it's a real surprise to see that coming in from Alliance, and it just caught Flavor of the Month off guard. And to be fair to them, once they got into that position, Dan, the shots were absolutely beautiful, and Flavor of the Month caught off guard, like I said. And congratulations to Alliance, a ballsy play, but it paid off for them.
Yeah, Pepega had been able to do enough damage to Flavor of the Month where they were a little bit vulnerable and a little bit weak, but I think they just expected Alliance to be going around the other way, whereas Alliance just double backed on themselves. They played the double bluff. It was perfect from them, and a really excited end. I mean, like, all 3 end circles have been pretty exciting. Like, okay, we had the 3v1 in the second game, but before that we had a 3v3. But again, it's come down to like 3 squads battling it out, like who's going to initiate the fight. Even though Flavor of the Month had the position, it was kind of low ground position. It was a low ground circle, so they were always going to be vulnerable from a team pushing from high ground. And it was just the shots from Alliance. They just clutched up at the right time.
Yeah, impressive stuff there from Alliance after a bit of a shaky game number 1, we have to say, from one of the powerhouse European teams. They stormed back into game number 3. But the exciting thing now, obviously why we tally up the totals and the points and everything to bring to everyone at home to keep you up to date with what's going on, is now that's the end of World's Edge for today. We now move over to Kings Canyon, which just presents a completely new challenge for these teams and players.
Yeah, we should potentially see a real opportunity for those teams who are in the bottom 5 to get a little bit more aggressive, because Kings Canyon are a lot smaller than World's Edge. And those teams who are at the top of the leaderboards after playing World's Edge might be able to experiment a little bit. They might say, all right, we've got a decent amount of points, we're feeling comfortable, let's see what we can do on Kings Canyon and how it's going to play out. Because even though people might have been playing it in like kind of public lobbies and matchmaking, we haven't seen that much of it in competitive as of late. So this is a fantastic chance for them to experiment.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to watch for sure. And I just get the feeling that we're going to, if that last game is anything to go by, and the fact that we had so many teams drop in early in comparison to the first 2 games, which is a little bit of a surprise to me. If it was a case of maybe some teams thinking, we've got Kings Canyon coming up next, like we're not sure how we're going to do on that. Let's try and have a big last game here on World's Edge and challenge some fights early on and try and cut some people off on the rotation to set them up for success in Kings Canyon, just because there is that factor of the unknown. It's not as well practiced with these new POIs, with these new compositions, with these, you know, the new ways that teams are playing in comparison to World's Edge. So that's the exciting thing about this. I love the fact that we have Kings Canyon second after World's Edge, because we kind of have what we're used to, and then we have kind of the unknown now for a lot of teams. So it certainly should be exciting to watch.
And even though it is what we're used to, I mean, it's still a little bit different. We still saw the fact that people were getting a little bit more aggressive. There was a few shifts in composition, not as much as we would have expected, but certainly there were a few legends chosen that they wouldn't have been in previous tournaments. As we can check some of these highlights from earlier on today, we can see the highlights from game 1, where we were just seeing throughout these 3 matches, teams kind of changed things up. It didn't matter whether they had to rotate across the entire map or whether they were in the circle from the early stages. There were still some teams that were more than happy to take fights and were going for those KP.
Yeah, and it came down to this 1v1 at the end, and it was Sati versus Artico, and Artico was the man with the better shots as he whips that massive shot straight into the gut of the Wraith to finish that game off. Big performance from Gambit in game number 1, taking home the win. But the surprise for us, of course, was the fact that after game number 1, BDS were actually the team who had the lead with just the sheer kill points that they've managed to put on the board.
Yeah, but then BDS fell off in both match number 2 and match number 3. They were eliminated a lot earlier. They weren't able to kind of stay at the top end of that leaderboard. They probably have done enough to stay out of the bottom 5, certainly for now, unless they literally finish dead last for the last few 3. They should be somewhat comfortable because we've seen a couple of teams pick up nil points. They've been able to find nothing in the early stages. So Kings Canyon is really going to be make or break. We knew it would be for some teams, but maybe they are going to be Kings Canyon teams. Who knows? They might just been playing a lot of Kings Canyon lately and they might suck at World's Edge. This is going to be the fun part of shifting over to a different map.
I love your Savage side that's come out. I'm liking this Dan Gaskin. It's the new Dan Gaskin. He gets a bit of facial hair and all of a sudden he's a Savage. But let's talk about game number 2 then. As we throw some of the highlights up from that game number 2. Of course, Third Impact were the team who managed to take it home. But again, like play style wise, it was very similar to what we have expected to see from Europe. Early rotations from a lot of team. No real big surprises in the compositions either, like we mentioned. And it played out very similar with all this talk of meta change, etc., to what we have seen in previous competitions.
Yeah, but it was Third Impact that stole the show in this particular match. They were fantastic with their pushes. They recognized when there was third-party opportunities, and at the end game as well, they pushed it at the right time to ensure they were able to get the victory, and they eventually found themselves in a 3 versus 1 because Taylor had been able to do a job from Flavor of the Month. After losing his 2 teammates in the early stages of the game, he ratted his way all the way to the end, picked up kill points, and then was able to get 2nd place. Triumph hadn't been able to do enough. Even though they won this engagement when there was 4 squads left, they were pushed just at the right time by Third Impact, and then they were able to get the champion for that game. And you know what? Third Impact have really impressed me. I think they were a team that I didn't know what they were going to be capable of in these first 3 games. Obviously, some fantastic players, but I didn't know how they were going to gel going into this tournament, and they've done really, really, really well.
Yeah, I just so wanted somehow for Taylor to win that game. Just because he was like running like, you know, it's like a scene out of Gladiator, wasn't it? Like one person like running up the hill. I meant 300. I don't know what film I made. There's a film in there somewhere, like running up a hill, an entire army of people. But yeah, unfortunately, no surprise to see him not be able to take down all of Third Impact on his own. But then we moved on to our game number 3. Of course, what we just saw, and Alliance, who were a little bit quiet in our first game, kind of had an average game number 2, really did turn it on and show us how good they are in our game number 3. And we should give a shout out as well to Fenerbahce Esports, who managed to get some points on the board here, because like we said previously, it's not just about the top of the table here in the GLL Master Summer. It is, of course, relegation and promotion from the Bravo division into the Alpha division.
Yeah, and you've also got to consider the fact that because you're getting double points in the Alpha, you could be a team that gets relegated out of Alpha and never get back into that Alpha. So you want to be able to get as many points as possible to give yourself even the slightest chance of being able to find your way into finals. It's going to be very, very unlikely if you can't find yourself out of Bravo after a couple of weeks, but something they are going to have at the back of their minds for sure. But yeah, considering they were on 0 points beforehand, at least they were able to pick up some, but then they were eliminated out of the game. But it was, again, Flavor of the Month just being in the right place at the right time. It looked like they had the game in their hands. They had the circle. They were able to eliminate one team, but then Alliance just came out of nowhere, it would seem, if you were in the point of view of Flavor of the Month. They were able to go for the bait and switch. They double bluffed. They didn't go through the gas, and instead they were able to push them at the right time and catch them off guard.
Yeah, fantastic stuff from Alliance to take home that game number 3. And that is going to be all for World's Edge now. Like we previously mentioned, you know, the map that these guys have been playing for so long in the competitive scene, and now we are going to see the return of Kings Canyon, where I know teams have had, you know, a few little side tournaments. They've obviously had to qualify as well, playing some games on Kings Canyon. But the beauty of it is that, you know, there is that element of the unknown for these teams. Are we going to see teams dropping on each other like we saw a little bit here on World's Edge who aren't familiar with it? Are they going to be designated drop spots for teams? And is that going to upset the rhythm of some of these teams? We'll have to wait and see and find out. But we'll take a look at the leaderboards for now of what is done and dusted after 3 games here on World's Edge. And we can see Flavor of the Month up in 1st place. And you have to contribute that not only to their consistent performance, but that 2nd place that Taylor managed to squeak out in that game number 2 down.
Yeah, the placement points have been huge, but they've been picking up kill points at the same time. Of course, Alliance and Third Impact up there as expected. But down at the bottom 5, Bodyguards, Execute, Outsiders, Fenerbahce Esports, and Lava City Boys. They are the ones that are going to have to find some points here to be able to get out of that relegation zone and stay in the alpha lobbies next week. Elite Gaming, South Africa, they are right on the cusp. 4 points, only 4 points ahead of the relegation zone, so they're going to need a decent performance as well. They're not out of it, the likes of Lava City Boys. Even though they're only on 2, they just need that one big game, or that one game they get to the late game and get some decent placement points, and they could find themselves just jumping out of those relegation zones.
Yeah, Flavor of the Month and Alliance looking really, really strong. We'll take a look at the Bravo leaderboard as well, just to show you the teams who are performing and trying to chase down those top 5 spots. And no surprise there to see some of those names. North, SJP2, Dead Inside, Weigers, and Na'Vi. All teams we have seen making the finals of the EMEA regions and European competitions recently. No surprise, as I say, to see them holding down those top 5 spots.
Very close, though. There's still a couple of teams on the cusp there. Exorcism, Purge, quite weird names in the grand scheme of things, but they are definitely going to be there and available of taking that top 5 spot as well. So I'm excited to see how the Bravo plays out. Of course, we don't see it on stream, but I'm glad we're able to be updated because it allows us to see the bigger picture here of teams that are potentially going to be joining the alpha lobbies next week. A team like North and SJP2, who seem to be dominating those Bravo lobbies, I'm sure would make a big impact into the alpha lobbies as well.
I was just about to say, North and SJP2 look like they're farming in that Bravo lobby at the moment. Lots of points on the board for them. Lots of KP as well. And I'm sure they're looking forward to those final 3 games on Kings Canyon as well. Of course, we'll keep you up to date with everything as the games roll on in the Bravo division and see who is making those runs to make it into the Alpha lobby for next time. And yeah, I think it's kind of set up nicely now. We've kind of got what we expect. We've got the teams we expect at the top of the leaderboard who are performing well. Nasky, Strafe, and Dell again in a position just behind them to that top 5 place to really make a run here on Kings Canyon. I just want to watch Kings Canyon. Like, I think it's going to be fascinating to watch how teams play. Are we going to see that European play style where teams try and rotate early, try and get into that end game, or are we going to see comps being mixed up and a lot more Revenant played? Are we going to see some Crypto played? You know, is map room going to be something that affects a lot of these games where teams can now ping, obviously, the map room and see where other teams are rotating and set up, or where they can take, you know, individualized fights. It really is going to be interesting to see how this map affects how these teams perform now.
Certainly going to be a spanner in the works for a couple of teams, and I think there's going to be two main things that come into the equation here: is how comfortable people are on their current compositions. Are they going to say, look, we don't want to start playing different legends that maybe we haven't been able to play as much, or whether they say we have to change something here because this is our only chance. Like those teams that are in the bottom 5, for example, if they just stick to what they know and they stick to what they've been trying to test in those first 3 games and they don't succeed in game 4, maybe that's when you move over in game 5 and 6 and try something a little bit different. It doesn't have to be game 4 straight away, because you can still go for something that's a little bit more comfortable in game 4 rather than 5 and 6. But also, it's going to be whether teams want to try out a few things. Those that are at the top of the leaderboards and maybe feel like they are comfortable, do they want to just say, okay, well, let's try out a Revenant. Maybe we can pick up a load of kill points. Maybe we've sussed out the rest of this lobby at this point that we're confident in our gunfights and we're going to be more than happy running at people, because Kings Canyon does offer that. It's very small. Those early fights are going to be there and they're going to be available.
It's going to be interesting to see for sure. I just wonder if some of those teams down the bottom of the table are going to be, you know, can really mix things up, because you got to think, if those teams down at the bottom of the table start taking those early fights and they're fights that they win, for example, against some of the teams who are currently in those top 5 positions, then that really opens it up to those teams who are currently sat in, you know, around 5th to 10th to really make a run of it and really close the gap on the teams at the top of those table. And the same for the players and teams that are in that bottom 5. If they win a few of those early fights, the teams who are just kind of peering over at that relegation zone are going to start getting super nervous. So I wonder if we're going to see teams targeting each other as well. If they see a team in front of them that go, say they're in 15th place and one team's in 14th, excuse me, just outside of the relegation zone, they see them, target them, win that fight, take them out, get points on the board. There's so many more factors with this relegation and promotion system that we have to take into account. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
It is always difficult to try and find out who's who when you're in a fight. You can only get that indication from a kill feed sometimes, or maybe you recognize a particular composition, or sometimes even you recognize them by skins. Drop location is always going to be an interesting factor, whether they know drop locations, whether they've done a little bit of research, even though it's pretty hard with like Little Kings Canyon been played as of late, so it's going to be a bit more difficult for some of these teams that maybe haven't been in scrim lobbies to know who's going to be dropping where. Because you want to be avoiding these big teams. Like the teams that have been slaying out at the moment, that have been dominating the lobbies, you don't want to be dropping with them. They're going to be confident. They're going to be looking for gunfights. But at the same time, you need kill points. So you need to be thinking about dropping somewhere where you can get into an early fight. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself just wandering into a group of people that are warmed up and they're going to take you down comfortably.
Well, I think that the lobby is almost set up. Apologies for a little delay here, ladies and gents. We want to get straight back into the action as soon as we possibly can. But Game 4, I believe, is just round the corner now. And we're going to be keeping our eyes, of course, on the teams that are at the top of the table. The likes of Gambit, Third Impact, Alliance. Who else was up there? Nasky Strayford, Dell. My memory is terrible, Dan. This is where you come in. But and also the teams down at the bottom of the table. But again, just look at the lobby at the moment, the way it's set up. Even if we lose those teams that are at the bottom of the alpha lobby at the moment who have qualified, some of those teams in the Bravo division who are going to make it up, they're powerhouse teams, Dan. And when it comes to next week's action, boy, we're going to have a scary looking alpha division.
Yeah, I think we knew when we looked at the alpha lobbies that there were a couple of teams that could probably drop out. I mean, and no offense to those that came from the EMEA region, but there is just a lot of strong European sides through the qualifiers that just missed out by a couple of points because of how stacked those lobbies were, and they will be desperate to try and break through into the alpha lobby to pick up those double points and to show what they're made of. But we are going to jump into Game 4 then, and we're going to be on board with Alliance and see where they want to start things off. They have been such a strong side right now. They're going with the same composition that they were running in World's Edge, but oh my goodness, LCB have already lost 2 members. It's just going to be the one remaining, and we knew there were going to be early fights here, Mark.
Yeah, a bit of a strange place to be fighting as well, just in this kind of no-name location just outside of the rig, just to the west of it. And now we're going to see Clashy desperately doing what he can to stay alive. And unfortunately for him, it looks like he's going to have to play the long game now and just try and get out of dodge, as Messenger's now desperately trying to chase him down. And with an RE45 in hand, that's the way that you dominate a drop spot early on when you get onto Kings Canyon. Win that fight quickly, wipe the team off, and I don't think they'll be dropping there quite with the same enthusiasm in game number 5.
Bodyguards also sticking with their same comp from World's Edge, the Revenant, Watson, and Gibraltar. The circle is going to be heavily north between Containment and Artillery, and even the Pathfinder next circle is going to find it just shifted ever so slightly north as the normal one as well. So that's going to be good for those teams that did drop northern side and Artillery. Not great news for those 2 squads that are down. But 2 squads that are down by water treatment, and actually they're very close to each other, so they are probably going to end up fighting as they rotate across the map. It's going to be a very difficult rotation for quite a few of these teams here, Mark.
Yeah, looking at that end circle there, I think I've seen an end circle where if you can control that tower, there's one that just finishes below it, just to the east. Literally just below where that tower is. So getting control of that top tower is certainly going to be a power position to try and play from and pick off some teams who are rotating in. But again, we're seeing major pushes now, trying to put a major push onto this team in front of them. Not a lot of ammo to work with here in the R9. As we're going to see bodyguards of the team who are trying to rotate away from this fight. And no surprise to see that. Low on shields, low on armor. And I think they're just going to want to get out of dodge here and get away from this fight and reposition where they can fight with a little bit more of an advantage across the map.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to take a fight unnecessarily, and the positioning is going to be key. You want to get a little bit of high ground to work with as well, and maybe you don't feel comfortable with your weaponry at the moment. You want a little bit utility available to you. So they will just be pinging about possible places where other people could be, or also looking for a little bit of extra loot that might have been left behind, scopes that are being available, grenades that might be just left on the ground as well that can help them a little bit later on, as everyone is starting to worm their way towards the circle now. Some teams slower than others. Certainly a couple of teams that have already set up around the kind of eastern side of Containment and also Artillery as well.
So 19 squads remaining. Not as much action early on as maybe we would expect, but Third Impact Black, who have been one of the best teams, performing teams, excuse me, so far inside that top 5. Now we're going to have to see them do the same thing here on Kings Canyon, and we can see them set up Artillery at the moment. So they're in a pretty good spot as we see the tunnel between Artillery and that watchtower here held down by Finalized. So there could be a potential battle between these 2 teams. The only problem with Finalized here is we look across the armor as they're trying to throw a few armors back to maybe try and fight with. is that they didn't have anything in comparison to what Third Impact had managed to pick up on their loot path.
And I do want to kind of focus on these teams that do have the Revenant. I want to see how they execute these pushes without the likes of a Crypto. It's very different when we saw TSM playing with the composition with Crypto and Revenant, and how you can execute that way, get the Crypto drone, get the EMP, and then you just push in with the Revenant and have a portal available as well to quickly get there if you're not able to pick up those kills. Things are a little bit different when you've got the likes of a Gibraltar and a Watson on your team. It's not going to be as aggressive as a push. The other team that has been utilizing the Revenant is Flavor of the Month. We can see them here. They certainly do have the aggressive capabilities. They've got the Wraith and the Pathfinder to work with. Might not be that Crypto, but maybe we see something different tomorrow when North America come into the equation and they show us what they're made of on both of these maps and what kind of compositions they're going to be offering.
Yeah, a little bit surprising to see 19 squads still alive, and you can see across the map as well. None of those teams who are on the edge of circle really are in a position to fight either. None of those teams are near each other. None of those teams are, ready to engage. It seems like teams have really decided to once again rotate early, that European playstyle that we talk about so much. And we are just going to see teams posturing for position with the Watson, like we're seeing here from Finalized, inside this tunnel, and waiting for that ring to close before they're forced to initiate.
How brave are the team with high ground going to be, though? Because Finalized don't want any of this right now. They are more than happy where they are. They're in a decent position in terms of where the circle's going to be going. They don't have much shields to work with, so they don't really want to be taking a fight. And they, of course, have the Gibby ultimate to work with, but that's not going to do any damage whilst they're inside. So they very much just want to survive at this point. And it's going to be Gambit on the other side. They're the team with the higher ground. Again, not much shields to work with as well. The loot on Kings Canyon has always been a little bit iffy for me personally, but I guess some people are luckier than others. But they are going to be worried about those in artillery. And Third Impact are going to be one of those teams. They can see the next zone. They know they're going to be in that next circle as well, so they don't have to move. There's a lot. I think that's why everyone's so separate right now, Mark, is that people have been able to comfortably work their way into this next circle without having to take any engagements.
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising, to be honest with you, to see so many teams make their rotations successfully, as now we're going to see Alliance actually come under pressure. The only problem is, when you go up that zip line, there's only one way to go, and that is in a straight line. And now Vaves hitting some beautiful shots initially. The Mastiff shots were good as well, and now it comes down to Hackis at the end here to finish off these kills, and I believe he is going to be able to do so. Actually, no, there is still one player alive, and even with those hammer points on the P2020, he's got to be super careful because Ranches has the wingman. It's a 1v1 situation here. Alliance need to win this. Ranches desperately trying to push it now, and then we can see the Q out here down to the bottom of the tower here from Vaves as well, excuse me. Ring is going to be closing as well. And when Ranches can get this finish, he'll be able to get an armor swap off, but the longer that he takes is going to give Vaves another potential opportunity to get back up to the top and challenge that fight, but you can see here, it's actually Hackis, excuse me. There is that last player alive, so now Hackis is going to be in a 1v1 situation with the player above him, has to tank some health damage from the gas, and to be honest, he has to push sooner rather than later, purely because of the fact the player above him is going to be able to get those armor swaps, and the longer that he stays there, the longer that damage is going to be taken. Beautiful little wingman shot on the right as we see the split screen between these two players, really showing you both sides of the action. The Evo shield is going to be used. Beautiful Q up again, and this is just a kind of game of cat and mouse here, Dan.
Yeah, Ranches, I would argue, needs this more, and he does find it eventually. It was very difficult. He can get the respawn now onto the two teammates. Major pushes needed these points far more than Alliance did. Of course, a shame to see Alliance eliminated so early, but considering how high up they are in the leaderboards right now, it's not going to affect them too much when it comes to, of course, relegation. Whereas a team like Major Pushers will always going to be worrying about the possibility of dropping down into that bottom five if they couldn't find decent amount of points in Kings Canyon. Alliance finalized. Pepega, Gibbo, and Lava City Boys all out. And Lava City Boys were one of those teams bottom, rock bottom of the leaderboards going into this game. So they are still going to be down there, potentially still on 0 points as well going into game 5.
Yeah, Pepega, Gibbo not having the best games either. They're around 7th place, I believe, at the end of World's Edge as we moved into Kings Canyon. So obviously a few things for them to work on as they move through the next 2 games. But EXE here are going to be one team. I'm going to have to make a late, wide rotation here. You have the Caustic as well, so the difficulty of getting a Caustic to that end zone has been talked about so many times, but if you can get in there, it becomes even more devastating. Outside is another team who found themselves in a difficult position as far as the leaderboard is concerned, and those relegation spots now set up inside of the one of the buildings just below the tower, just between the tunnels. Now we're going to see the push come in, and they're going to be forced into those Watson fences. The Gibraltar does take some slow damage. Arcstar will go in as well, and you can see the Gibraltar ultimate going to be used here just to maybe back up and just stop this push coming in from OS. But looking across outsiders here, even though they got a Mastiff in hand, you look at the weaponry, Spitfire, not great. Armor, not great. This could be a difficult fight for them to hold here.
Can they back it up fast enough, though? That is the real question, and often asked by youth of today. As we move over to FigFam, who again are in a pretty good position to be able to get a vantage point here. They again can look for another push. They know the teams are residing in there. They are just going to keep taking down these Watson fences until they can comfortably walk in. But at the moment, they are just being thrown with all of the utility that has to offer from the team inside.
Yeah, difficult spot for them to try and push, but outsiders, they're in the most difficult spot in my opinion, because they're using up so much of that inventory that they have in front of them. So many grenades being thrown out. Having to use those interception pylons on the Watson as well.
Well, BDS
so many resources.
Now, that's not something that we were expecting. BDS, after such a good start in game 1, they have really fallen from game 2, 3, and 4. They're going to be going out in 16th place. Nask, Strafe, and Dell, though, they're going to be working their way out of artillery at the moment and just seeing if anyone's going to be behind them. They've kind of set up a little choke point here. This is a decent position to be in, I'd say. You've got a nice vantage point. You can see the map, and you've also got a decent viewing angle from those teams that may be coming out of artillery. They have 2 blue shields to work with. It does look like Dell is struggling a little bit in terms of having cells, but flavor of the month, well, they are the flavor of the month at the moment. They've got that Revenant. They are going to be getting aggressive. They are out for blood here, Mark.
Yeah, and the Horns of War are being blown right now because they're going in with that Revenant ult. You can see Caustic ultimate going to be used in front of them to try and slow down this push. And the difficulty is if a team does run away from that Revenant ult, that you can put yourself in a position when you return or you get returned to that totem, if the push isn't successful, that you can be finished off by a third party. But they're trying to be aggressive, and they're being incredibly aggressive. Look at this push coming in from Flavor of the Month. They chased down that team. It was a clean wipe. Every single player stayed alive. Now they get the armor swaps. Now they get the loot, and that's going to be KP on the board for them.
Execution are out, and they were very much executed there by Flavor of the Month. And this is what I love. This is why I was really excited to see Revenant being used more. I'm surprised we only see it on 2 squads out of 20, and maybe it will change as we go into games 5 and 6. But Flavor of the Month have really shown how you can utilize it correctly. Even without a crypto, they've been aggressive at the right times. As Fenerbahce Esports, the Turkish team, are desperately trying to survive here. They are going to be outside of the next circle, but they do still have 2 minutes to work with. But they are being pressured here, and it's going to be a very difficult fight, because who is it that's pressuring them? It's Flavor of the Month.
Flavor of the Month here need to be aggressive on this fight as well. They have 1:55 to play with, so they've got a little bit of time on their side, but they are on the quicker side of that circle that will be closing. You can see them recognizing that nice and quickly here and decided to make a little bit of a wider rotation to make that next rotation in towards the circle a little bit easier. But as you can see here, Fenerbahce Esports is trying to hold them out. But again, looking across the armors here, it really isn't a strong looking armory for them. They've got the Evo shield here, which is still on level 1, hasn't been leveled up to, you know, level 2. There's still 63 damage needed to be done on that. Pinky Finky on the white, and Fose as well with that 2nd level blue Evo. So a push here, especially if they manage to get that ultimate up in time from the Revenant totem, really would be a simple push, as we see Flavor of the Month actually now moving up, as it looks like Fenerbahce are going to retreat a little bit here, as we now jump on board with Triumph to see where they're set up here, just to the south of that tower. You can see where that ping is down. That's where I believe that end circle will finish.
Yeah, that's where all the pings are at the moment. People just trying to predict where they think the circle's going to go. I mean, King's Canyon, I would say, is a little bit more predictable than World's Edge when it comes to circles, and a lot of people have played so much King's Canyon. Even with the changes, they'll be familiar with where those potential final circles are going to be. I'm still just chuckling at the fact that what happens if Fenerbahce get to a final circle and we see Pinky Finky in a 1v1? How excited you will actually get with that scenario is keeping me smiling through this current game. Flavor of the Month have found their way into the next circle, and they are just keeping eyes on anyone that may be joining them. They can see Watson fences across the way. And I really feel like Flavor of the Month are one of the most threatening sides in this lobby right now. Not just because of their composition, but just because of their sheer tactical ability and their lack of fear when entering a gunfight.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that should be talked about is how they are executing beautifully as well on these pushes. Pierre's going to get the finish with the longbow onto Pinky Finky. So unfortunately for Dan Gaskin and everyone who's watching who wants to hear me scream that at the top of my lungs, that's not going to happen in this game number 4. But Taylor's going to have to be careful here because there is a team in that choke. It's going to be time for that totem to go down, which means that it's going to be more aggression coming in here from Flavor of the Month. And I think they're going to use that Revenant Totem to try and push onto that choke, but Pierre, unfortunately, he got melted. That's what we're talking about with timing. If you get that wrong and you don't get returned, then all of a sudden you can find yourself in a difficult position. Fenerbahce Esports somehow managing to stay alive in this situation as well, but Foze will be taken out, but managed to at least execute. Noth manages to get 1 kill in the feed, or a down. I believe that was the player that he managed to take down. So the Revenant's still alive here. The banner for Pierre will not be able to be recovered, I think. And now Triumph, who were the team who were trying to gatekeep out, are now going to come into a battle of their own as they do manage to take down the team who were trying to push in there. That was Pinky Finky, the last standing player, I believe, from Fenerbahce. Rest in peace, Pinky Finky. We'll see you back on Kings Canyon next game.
11 squads remaining, so teams just trying to get into that top 10 at this point. And Triumph, well, they have a pretty long rotation, a pretty awkward rotation to work with as well, as do Flavor of the Month, and only 2 members of Flavor of the Month. Elite Gaming, they were eliminated as well, so they won't be able to pick up points. Another team that is teetering on the edge of that relegation. I am excited to see how the relegation looks after 4 games, but it's going to get even more exciting as we get into game 5 and 6. The circle has been predicted pretty successfully by those teams that were in the tunnel towards artillery, and there is even that possibility it could shift up right into that really annoying spot right below artillery as well. But Third Impact in prime position at the moment if they can win this particular fight. They know there is a team below them, and they do have the weaponry to work with. 3 blue shields is pretty decent as well. That's always the fear, though. Are you pushing a team who is better geared than you? Even if you might have the height advantage, you might not have the advantage when you get into the actual battle.
So 42 seconds left, and Third Impact are going to have to make that move. It looks like they might be looking to opt for a wide rotation, but if they do go through there, as we see the Kraber now in the hands of Third Impact and Balonji. If he can hit a shot here, that would be the indicator to push and try and clean up these kills on that team. But the only problem is he's only got 20 seconds to make the play with. So Balonji is certainly going to be the man who needs to light the fire on the push. But not only that, speaking of lighting fire, things are getting hot and crispy in here as the ultimate will go down and the death protection will be engaged. And this makes this push even more potentially effective for Third Impact. Jazz and Balonji now moving around the back, and there's going to be a Pathfinder who is not paying attention to that push as the distraction was made at the front of the door. And as they get returned there, you can see that Strafe did manage to get taken down. Dell will be taken down as well. So it looks like it has actually been an all-round successful push here from Third Impact onto Nasky, Safe, and Dell.
Yeah, they are probably the only team we've seen so far adapt and change their composition from World's Edge
Oh,
to
one player alive in here.
And there is just a single player waiting, being protected by the purple shield of his teammate. But I'm sure that Third Impact are just going to wait, bide their time, and they'll push in when they're ready. And it's going to be a standoff of a 1 versus 3. But Bodyguards might be having a sniff at what's going on at the moment. Woo! Third Impact are able to get a couple of shots down, but there's still a player just hiding behind the shield there. It's so dangerous. He is able to get out, but surely they're able to take him down. My one falls, and Flavor of the Month are able to pick up a kill elsewhere. But Third Impact have done well. They've utilized the Revenant to perfect effect. They just have to be careful about third parties now.
Oh, this is a difficult pull. This pull really has surprised me, to be honest with you, with this end circle. Those teams who had set up for where we've seen a lot of those pings just to the south of the tower now having to make their way back through an incredibly tight choke point. As you can see, the only way into this circle, if you're not already there, is through that tunnel. So any teams who are on the edge of that circle at the moment are just going to be thinking about KP as we see legit Lolly just flying in and landing some shots with the 301. Messenger now going to be able to pick up some kills of himself, and we're going to see the Kraber being pinged. Outsiders in this game as well, inside this top 6. So good finish from then. KM Kua are going to be in this game as well. Rugby, Sanya, and Sanya, which is always difficult to say. Please make your names a little bit different.
I mean, I'm just glad you said it, to be honest, but we can see only 5 squads left. Third Impact unfortunately got taken out right in front of our very eyes. So we've got Bodyguards, Flavor of the Month, Gambit, Nkua, and Outsiders. And Bodyguards and Flavor of the Month are both teams that are running the Revenant, although Revenant, sorry, and Flavor of the Month did lose that Revenant though. So it is going to be Bodyguards arguably in one of the strongest positions right now. They've got a composition that is working perfectly. They've got Circle as well. They know there is a team working in there, but which side do you commit to? That's the real question.
I mean, I just had a deep breath and a sigh at this circle, because it's one of those where, I mean, if you've had a little bit of success in the casino, maybe you're going to know where this one goes, but it really is red or black at this point. What side is it going to finish? Hopefully a lot of these players will have had some experience of this circle, but at the same time, with Kings Canyon and the lack of experience for a few players and a few teams, as we do see one player get down there and that should go down as a KP, you have to wonder if they've got the experience of this end circle, as we now see all these players being forced through this tunnel. Like I was mentioning, Artico, again, having to clutch up here and stay alive, manages to get the armor swap off with just around 5 HP to work with. Gets the Watson ult down as well to work with. That's going to eat up that grenade, and that's a huge play, again, from Artico, clutching up in that last gasp moment. But the only problem for him is there's so many teams in this tunnel. One of them is, of course, KMKUA, and they are going to win that fight pretty comfortably, coming in as that aggressive third party.
On the other side, though, are bodyguards, and they are set up perfectly for this circle. They gambled,
surely,
and it worked out. And you've got to imagine that surely they are going to be in a position to win this. Rugby is going to be the one with the portal, having to try and do something here. But as soon as they portal, they're going to be running into surely their death. Bodyguards had the composition, they've got the position now, and now they just have to make sure that they can defend this push coming out. Otherwise, well, I mean, I guess we just see how this one plays out. We've seen this a couple of times. I mean, way back when we were on Kings Canyon, this circle has caused a lot of problems. It's a horrible position to be in. The portal is going to come out from Rugby. What can you do with it?
This is known as the yeet play, and let's see if it plays off. We can see the Wraith goes in, manages to get the portal down, which is an impressive thing to do in that particular position. It looks like, unfortunately for them, they will have the Watson to get the fences up. Gibraltar ultimate coming down. They're throwing everything they can at the situation to try and find their way into this end circle. There's going to have to be a res going down as well. That Phoenix kit's going to have to be popped, but is he going to actually have time to get that pop off? I think they've just given up at this point. They understand there is no way that they could possibly win this circle. 2 players full. Bodyguards, bodyguarding, doing everything that they need to do. It's simple for them, and all you got to do right now is click that mouse, finish it off. Went for the fancy Kraber shot and missed. That's a little bit embarrassing, but anyway, bodyguards will win that. And it was the circle, essentially, that won them that game. Great place from them, bodyguards. A little bit of a surprise to see their name up there, but a big performance from them.
Yeah, I don't know if they were bodyguards or more like bouncers at the end, just checking the IDs as people were coming into their building, and they said, no, get the hell out of here. It worked out for them, though. Like, they pushed it at the right time elsewhere to ensure that they won the engagements with the teams that were in artillery, and they were able to utilize Revenant's ability as well. So the fact that you've got the ultimate available with him, you can get those kind of free pushes. It worked out for them, and I questioned that composition and how it was going to work on World's Edge. Well, it seemed to have worked on Kings Canyon. Yes, okay, they got a little bit fortunate with the last circle, but they guessed right, and maybe that they've seen it end there before.
I don't open Twitter right now to see what players' reaction to that end circle was. But anyway, let's look at some of the highlights of that game number 4 here in our EMEA region. As we saw this long, elongated, it couldn't have gone on longer, this 1v1 battle between Hackis and Ranches here. And it was eventually Ranches who managed to finish off that kill. But Flavor of the Month again, getting KP on the board down, which seems to be their way that they want to play here. Not only on Kings Canyon, but we saw it back on World's Edge as well. And Fenerbahce Esports doing all they could to put themselves in a position. But again, similar teams that what we saw in our games on World's Edge performing here. As we see this push coming here, and you have to say this was probably the game-winning push here from the bodyguards, excuse me.
Yeah, it was. Just taking out Third Impact, 2 of the other threatening team that were in artillery and had that potential final circle going in their favor, but they were able to third-party them at the right time. This was an interesting fight as well, just at the bottom. That was like basically the fight for second place, because whoever was going to get put up against this would never come away with a victory. But I guess we should talk about Third Impact. They were one of the teams that did switch up their composition. They did add a Revenant into their lineup. So we'll see whether other teams start to do this going into game 5 and 6, where maybe their backs are against the wall down in potentially the bottom 5, for example.
Yeah, it was interesting to see as well. So many teams early rotating in the first game of Kings Canyon. You know, as I mentioned right at the start, I was about halfway through that game as well. Is, you know, it's something we see a lot from Europe, is the fact that they like to find those early spots. They like to be a little bit more conservative in the way they play. They play for end game, and We've seen so many changes. You know, everyone's been watching the North American streams, you know, the likes of How, etc. You know, some of the biggest streamers that we have in Apex, and watching how, you know, the Americas region seems to have completely and utterly changed things up. But Europe's sticking to his guns, even here on Kings Canyon, and I'm excited to see what happens in our next game. But for now, we're going to take a very quick break. We'll be back with game number 5 in just a few moments. Welcome back to the GLL Summer Masters, everybody. Game 4 is done and dusted, and we're now into our penultimate game of today, Dan. We're on Kings Canyon, and to be honest with you, those 4 games have flown by really, really quickly. We've only got 2 left.
They have. They haven't always gone down to like the last tiny little circle where people are just desperately trying to escape the gas. It's been exciting though. I mean, that last one was a little bit anticlimactic with the fact that we knew who was going to win it, but getting to that point was still interesting. There's all these different ways that the game's being played right now. Like Kings Canyon, I didn't expect to go that way. I thought we were going to see a lot more early fights, but a lot of teams were just able to successfully rotate, and whether that's down to just map knowledge and circle knowledge and seeing how it was shifting and predicting that it was going to be such a heavy shift north, it meant that we didn't get the early engagements because people were like, okay, well, we've got a pretty good idea of where it's going to be, so why would we get in a fight when we've got a successful rotation into the next circle?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if game number 5 is going to throw up any surprises, if we're going to see a few changes in teams, you know, trying to be a little bit more aggressive and put up some KP early on. If they just catch people on the rotation, it might be one of those games where people just found successful rotations, you know, into a strong spot. But unfortunately for them, that end circle was certainly devious, I think is the best way to put it. And I'm not talking about the devotion in game. It was a tough one. Unless you were on that north side of the map and you got into that end circle like bodyguards did, you really didn't have any chance of rotating into it. So hopefully we see a little bit more of a kind end circle in our next game, where we can have a few more teams engaged in potentially fighting for those top spots. But let's take a look at the scoreboard for now and see how things are looking after our game number 4 is done and dusted. This is the scores from our last match. Bodyguards, of course, taking it home. 10 kills as well for them, so a big 44 points for them. KUA in behind them with 30 points on the board. But again, flavor of the month, always in that top 3, Dan. And that consistency is what could pay for them.
Yeah, the consistency has been great from quite a lot of these teams, but particularly for over a month because they were the one team that were able to transition from World's Edge to Kings Canyon more successfully than others. But down at the bottom, well, things didn't go too well for Papega. Gibbo, Lava City boys still haven't been able to pick up any points, which is not going to put them in a good place going into game 5 and 6. But we can see how the leaderboard looks overall after we add all the points together from those first 4 games. So Flavor of the Month do find themselves top with 108 points. They are heads and shoulders above the rest. Gambit and Alliance just behind them with 3rd impact there as well. Lava City boys, excuse me, they were able to find 2 placement points, so they at least have been able to get off the mark. But they very much find themselves in relegation territory alongside Execute, Fenerbahce, Elite Gaming, and then it's a toss-up at the moment between YDN, Outsiders, and Major Pushers.
Yeah, we have to remind everyone as well that placement points are doubled here, so although there's a big gap at the top, that can be closed pretty quickly between Gambit Esports and Flavor of the Month. But Alliance, even though they didn't have the best of games again in that last game that we just saw on Kings Canyon, still in contention. And I think that's something to talk about when we talk about who's at the top of the leaderboard. But the bottom is where things really do get interesting, as we say, with those 5 teams fighting against relegation now. And I think for them, it's just a case of any point. How can we get points on the board? Obviously, we're not winning what seems to be those fights that are going. So hopefully they're thinking, can we get a circle that's going to give us a little bit of love? Is it going to move to where we're dropping, you know, an easy rotation for us? Anything to get on the board, because things just aren't going well for them down there at the moment. And I think they're all looking for, you know, a little bit of divine intervention maybe with the circle helping them out.
And it shows how important some of these fights are for these teams as well. When we had that engagement between Alliance and Major Pushers, and it was down to the 1v1, if Major Pushers had lost that, they would have found themselves in that bottom 5. They would have been in the relegation. But winning that fight, they were able to get a couple extra kill points, a little bit further in terms of placement, and that's why they just sit outside of the relegation zone. So they need to be clutching up, these teams in the bottom 5. When they're presented with that fight, they need to be winning it. They can't afford to just be throwing away game after game, because they're running out of time to pick up any points. And if you are in the bottom 5, you do fall into the Bravo division. We did get updated earlier from the teams that are currently leading in the Bravo division, and they are teams that could stay in the Alpha division as well. They are teams that are very capable of rocking with some of the best teams that we see currently.
Yeah, the likes of Na'Vi and North, I think we're in that top 5. So incredibly strong teams that we've seen in the finals of some of the Apex Legends Global Series online tournaments, and putting in good performances there. So yeah, a lot of dangerous teams sort of on the hunt to get into the Alpha division as we see the day roll through. But talking about the Alpha division, we're getting into our game 5 very soon. Anyone that you're looking out for here that we need to keep our eyes on as far as performance is concerned?
I mean, flavor of the month, I think we can expect to be showing consistency again. Papega, I want to see a little bit more from them after their first performance wasn't that great on Kings Canyon. I think they'll be looking to make up for that, but we really need to be focusing on these teams that are in the bottom 5. Like, what have they got to offer? Lava Gaming Boys are a team that have been really struggling, and they are very much behind everyone else right now with only 2 points. They're 8 points behind, but just one good game and they can find themselves leaping out. So I want to be able to focus a little bit on the teams that are in those bottom 5. I'll try and keep an eye on the kill feed to see if they do drop out. But certainly it's going to get a little bit scary now for those teams. Otherwise, they are going to get closer and closer to heading towards that Bravo division.
Well, here we go. Game number 5 is kicking off. You can see it in your picture in picture. I'm going to start off with BDS Esports, the team who after game number 1 in today's action were actually top of the leaderboards, but have fallen off a little bit as you see them dropping here in the very northwest side of the map. But a little bit of a surprise, to be honest with you, after that strong performance, and to see them struggling so much in the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, but at least they had that one good game to start with. There's
Pinky, no.
Yeah, we don't get to see the Pinky Finky clutch up, but Fenerbahce again losing a member early on. They haven't been able to catch a break in this tournament whatsoever. They just seem to be losing these early fights. But it is EGSA who have been able to pick up not only a kill, but also a gold shield. As Pinky Finky, well, he's out of there, disconnected straight away as soon as he's gone down. Maybe not particularly happy about that one.
Yeah, it looks like Fenerbahce are going to be in trouble once again, and Gambit involved in a battle as well early on. You can see Hardeki has managed to pick up a kill in the feed, and Artico's managed to pick up another one. And this is a much more aggressive start than what we saw on the last game here on Kings Canyon. Players dropping all over the place. Outsiders involved in the battle as well, as the L-Star's going to do the damage here. And now Artico here having to land some shots, manages to hit some wingman shots, but it wasn't enough, and that is going to be them eliminated early in the game. And it's Hackis from Alliance with the P2020 and the hammer points again doing the damage.
Yeah, Gambit going down. That's not going to be good for them. Fenerbahce also out. LCB find themselves. We're down to already 16 squads, so an entirely different start to what we saw in our first match on Kings Canyon. The other team eliminated Lava City Boys. It's not looking good for them. They're going to find themselves with one game left to try and rescue something. They are going to need an absolute mammoth of a game.
Keep them in your thoughts.
Yeah, I think they might have a chance, but for the moment, we don't really need to be focusing on them too much. We need to be looking at other teams that are trying to stay alive in this competition.
Well, we get to see the map overhead now. We can see not only where that first circle is, but we do have the benefit of the Pathfinder beacon. Thanks to the overhead there, you can see a lot of runoff involved, some of the airbase as well, some of bunker, and then the little bunker town area just outside of bunker. Obviously, that's why it's called Bunker Town, but that's where a lot of pings are going down at the moment. A couple of end circles just to the south of that in the open ground as well. There's a little truck as well where I've seen some end circles finish around there, so we'll have to keep our eyes on where that actually starts to pull once we see that third ring enter the conversation. But Outsiders here, one of those teams who do need a game where they get some solid points on the board. And remember, even though some of the point differentials seem a little bit bigger than normal, should we say, it's because of the fact that in the alpha lobby here, you get double points for your placement and your kills. So they can be made up very, very simply, as now Alliance and Hackis, the man who loves the P2020 and those hammer points, He's just skulking about here. Gets himself a little drop off from his teammate there, the blue light mag from IPN. Good teammate, good friend.
And Alliance definitely do have that kind of scary composition for late game. If they can get into a building into that final circle, they're going to be terrifying to push. Caustic is such a nuisance to go up against. So we'll see whether they're able to get a little bit further than they were in the previous, as Outsiders have lost a member yet again, and it looks like they are leaving him for dead here. They are going to get out of dodge, and they don't want anything to do with this whatsoever. It's Third Impact who pick up the kill points. It'll be 2 because of the double available, as you mentioned. And it's Third Impact again who are just showing that they want to run at people. As soon as they catch wind of where someone might be, they are just W keying towards them, and it's been successful.
Yeah, I think that's the point that you make. It's not the fact that they're just doing that. They are winning pretty much every single engagement that I've seen Third Impact Black involved with so far in this game, which is incredibly impressive to speak about, to be honest with you, after so many games of Apex have already been played. But now moving over here towards Runoff, and we are going to see Elitist now on top of the building here. And there was BDS Esports, I believe, who were also set up here. So both players and both teams without that Pathfinder, maybe thinking it is going to pull into this particular location. However, not having that Pathfinder beacon, although Strafe does, of course, have the opportunity to use that beacon and has the information. As you can see, that green ring inside of him, maybe just cut off on the rotation here by the team that's above them, Elitist.
Interesting to see Lifeline being used by Big Wolf as well. Of course, she went through a number of changes with the latest patches. Losing the fast heal kind of ruined Lifeline a little bit for me. I wasn't expecting those changes to come through, but I guess Elitists feel like they could do something with the Lifeline. Are you surprised to see a Lifeline in this lobby?
A little bit in comp play, but I can see why. Obviously, it's a very viable player. I know a lot of people play it in ranked because you have that now ability to res someone and still fight yourself without having to be taken out of the game. So obviously, there's a lot to love about the Lifeline changes, but I still feel there's other options that maybe are a little bit stronger for competitive play. But obviously, if they think it's going to work for them, then hey, give it a try. Elitists are showing that, again, there's so many changes in Legends with the most recent patch that there's so many different options that become viable for you to run in your composition.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for experimentation and seeing what works, what doesn't work. And again, it can just come down to what you're comfortable with, as we see
some crypto
has been introduced to the lobby as well. So someone is going to be trying out something a little bit different in match number 5 here on Kings Canyon, just trying to scout out, seeing if he can see anyone over in market at the moment. It doesn't look like he's been able to get too much vision, but as I say that, just as he comes out of the crypto drone, he did spot one player. So it's YDN who are going to be trying to utilize crypto here alongside Gibraltar and a Wraith. As we take a look at the 5 teams eliminated, it looks like Third Impact were taken out as we were away from their point of view. So Third Impact, Gambit, Lava City Boys, Fenerbahce, and Bodyguards all taken out of the lobby.
Yeah, and it was Alliance who managed to take them down. I just saw in the feed there that Hackis managed to pick up that final down onto the player to get the clean wipe on them. So big performance in this game from Alliance. And it seems like when they play aggressive, they have a lot of success as well. And you can see now IPM picking up that Evo shield. That's purple. Around 400 more damage. And he's going to have that up to 4 red. Hackis with the purple as well. And Vaif's on the Gibby with the blue. So they're looking pretty confident at the moment. Hackis, again, just keeping that P2020 in his back pocket, or I don't know if it's actually been swapped out. That might be a HUD bug, and he's actually running the Eva. But with the success he's had with the P2020, it wouldn't be too much of a surprise to see that hammer-pointed gun stay in his inventory for a little bit longer.
Alliance are pinging where they might be feeling comfortable to rotate through at the moment, just on the edge of Slum Lakes. Certainly will have a couple of ways through when that circle does move in, but over here, BDS seem to have set up shop, and they have a good vantage point to see several different ways where they may be pushed from at the moment. Decent weaponry to work with for all of them as well. All seem to have a wingman and all have a Mastiff to work with at the same time. So whether it be near or far, they're going to have the ability to take down any oncoming opponents. But with 15 squads remaining, things have started to slow down again, even though it was a pretty hectic start to Kings Canyon. The mid-game did kind of drop pace ever so slightly, but I guess that's to be expected when people got more of an indication as to where the circle is going to be, how they were successfully going to rotate through, as there are 2 teams here on the edge of the pit, and it looks like Finalized might be trying to ambush a team below them here.
Yeah, they're going to have to make this play, though, as that circle will be closing in around 2 minutes' time, and that is going to be the ambush being made, and the Port of Gibraltar desperately trying to stay alive. Unfortunately, he's not longed for the rest of this game. He did get the bubble down, but he will be finished nice and simply here. And now we're going to see some caustic gas actually being thrown in. It's Alliance. It was actually Vapes who got taken down. So the last thing that they were expecting was for a team to be set up in that position for all the good work that Alliance have done there. Just caught off guard by that team holding down the high ground. And sometimes you just don't expect that. You expect teams to take the option to rotate in ahead of you when it's there. But instead, they played for that pick and they managed to pick it up.
Another big team, KMK UA, have been taken out and they will fall in 15th. Fortunately, they couldn't survive as we move over to Alliance. They have got into another fight here. Hackis does take down one member of OS and he will then back off. As you say, those hammer point rounds can be absolutely deadly. Goes back into the red, will heal up, and he just wants to join up with his teammate at this point. As Outsiders, they lose another member, and they're just going to be down to one rat now to potentially just try and survive here. Or is he going to go for the long route round and maybe go for the res?
We'll have to wait and see, but the P2020, again, the damage dealer. As we do see, actually, Outsiders and the Silter being in a position to have his banner recovered here by Kader. Got some shots in the back. The only problem is you're looking at Kader's weaponry and an alternator and a Mozambique. That is not going to get the job done when you're in a 3, let alone when you're the last player alive on your team. So difficult moments, I think, is what we have to say ahead of that particular player.
Lions have lost a second, and it's just going to be IPN left. Don't think he's going to have the ability to get a banner back either. So there's a couple of rats left in this lobby that are just trying to survive. Nask, Strafe, and Dell have been able to situate themselves in a pretty comfortable spot. So they certainly are looking good at the moment with decent weaponry and a couple of good armors on them. They do hear plenty going on nearby, though. There are a couple of teams residing ever so closely. A lot of this real estate has been taken up now by most teams heading towards very similar spots as they expect where this next circle is going to be going.
So now we see a little moment of calm here, and no surprise really. In fact, we're only seeing Ring 2 close, and we've already seen so many teams dropping. Already 6 teams dropped out of this lobby. So there's going to be plenty of space for teams to move in, especially from the outside of the circle to a position as we see some late rotations in there. Loads of room to play with, loads of posturing. I think it's going to be one of those games, a more traditional game than what we saw in game number 1 after those early engagements. The fact that there's so much space open now means that teams can comfortably rotate in without coming under too much fire. And it's going to come down to that kind of 4th ring, 5th ring where we're going to see those engagements really start to pick up.
Yeah, because we've got so many Pathfinders available, everyone kind of knows where the next one's going. So instead of fighting to get into the circle where you wouldn't know where it is if you didn't have a Pathfinder, instead everyone moving towards the green circle on their map as BDS are having this little bit of a back and forth with squads near them, just warning shots being fired to try and scare anyone away from a push. But at the moment, no one under any immediate threat. I think that's what the point you were trying to make, is that because there has been so many teams been eliminated, we just aren't seeing any big scary engagements. No one caught out in the open just yet, but I imagine that's going to change in these next couple of minutes, Mark.
Oh, 100%. This is kind of the rumble before the earthquake. This is where you start to feel the tremors and you start to think what's going on here. And then as soon as that 3rd ring closes and that 4th ring comes, this is when all the teams who are in these tight little areas and holding down these positions they've been holding for so long are going to be forced to move. And the early rotators are going to be the ones who are going to be successful. And now we're going to see a portal actually going out here from Dell, and I think he wants to get a little bit aggressive here. Maybe look to pick up some angles to pick up some KP himself, but the only problem is he's kind of got to be caught between 2 or 3 teams and had to take a deep breath there before he drowned out in the open to get back into a position to heal up, but he managed to do so. I think he might have just been looking to see if he could poke to get a 3rd party there and pick up some KP, but there's your team tracker, Dan. I see Alliance, really the biggest team to have fallen so far.
Yeah, they were the next to fall. Unfortunately, Kings Canyon hasn't been too kind to them, but they did enough damage on World's Edge that they don't have to worry too much about relegation, but certainly haven't been able to pick up as many points as they would have liked because, of course, the overall points are going to matter to get yourself into those finals when we get all the way to the start of August. Elitists are pretty well equipped, 3 purple armors to work with, and it seems like they may have smelt a rat. They're certainly looking for someone right now. Are they able to find them? There it is, as the observer just has a little glance over. He's going to be pinged as well So I think they want this elimination point. They want to get the kill point on the board, but at the same time, they don't want to leave themselves vulnerable to a potential third party coming to attack them when they expose themselves.
Well, over to Figvam here is set up just below the tower, which is just to the east of Runoff. As I say, just lots of posturing at the moment. We can see one down there in the kill feed from EGSA. Peaches taking down Niso from YDN. Havoc in hand as well, and it's got the select fire on it as well, and that Baz can really do some serious damage. And now we're going to see portal in here of Viazu. A little bit of a Gibraltar ult coming down, which is causing him some problems. But again, up on that supply ship, able to get some shots down. And that's going to be some KP going to them. As now Flavor of the Month are once again involved in some battles in the kill feed. We can see that Pierre picking up a Mastiff down onto Cleve. So now we're starting to see the action pick up a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of these teams that set up are nice and early and they're able to gatekeep those that are pushing into this next circle. Flavor of the Month are amongst it. There's a lot of difficulty for them earlier on, but at least Pierre has done the job to keep them at bay. He's at least got a res up and he manages to hit a big shot. Can he hit a second? No, he can. He almost did enough there. Wasn't able to get his team up. And Flavor of the Month will be taken out of the lobby. And EGSA now are going to be the team that have certainly got a lot to do.
Now we're going to see Peaches pushing in. Big, massive shot there to take down one player. He tries to jump in through the window as well, but EGSA doing a pretty good job to clean up this fight. The syringe is going to be popped here. 11 squads now remaining as we start to whittle down to our last few players to be able to get a comfortable revive off on his teammate here, Peaches. So EGSA will stay in contention here with a full 3. And Papega Gibbo nearly did it, Dan. Nearly messed up.
Nearly.
They're still in this game after being eliminated first in the lobby in the first game here on Kings Canyon. And Kuya, who was trying to get aggressive, has to back down. Just saw that peek come in, and there's the advantage of keeping that grapple in your back pocket should you need it.
Teams like Elite Gaming and Executed are still in the lobby at the moment. They were teams that were on the chances of being relegated if they aren't able to climb out of that bottom 5. So they've done well to get into the top 11. They'll probably be looking to get at least top 10. A couple of them do just have the 2 players, as Papega Gibbo are going to be pushing in now. Metafe with some impressive wingman shots that we've seen so many times, not just on his streams, but in tournaments as well. And it looks like they want this one. The Gibraltar ult comes out to try and force them towards them. As Kuya is also going to be spraying down with the R99 as well. And Zipeth is just going to shield back up. Finalized other team on the receiving end of it, but at least they've been able to shield up accordingly. And they can take this fight if they want to, Mark.
Yeah, they are the ones who can hold position here because Papega Gibbo are the ones who have to make the biggest transition into that next circle in around 20 seconds time. So they're quite happy to hold down this position and try and take this fight. And every bit of damage they're doing as well is just adding to the Evo shield, leveling up here for Nook as well. So they're quite happy to just sit in this position, farm that Evo shield up until they get into a position where if they get pushed, they're going to have the best opportunity to win that fight. But now we're going to see the rotation in here from Nook, trying to find a little space, a Nook if you like, for them to try and set up. And it looks like we talk about rats a lot, and the sewers is a good place to find rats, but there's going to be a team of 3 here, and hopefully they won't find themselves in a position where there's only one alive.
Yeah, I wanted to find any nook or cranny, but that is certainly somewhere to reside at the moment. Elite Gaming RSA will fall in 11th, so they didn't quite get into top 10. They are one of the teams that are struggling in the bottom 5 at the moment, so a shame to see them eliminated, but they did get a little bit further. It'll be whether they picked up any kill points on the way as we look at the leaderboards a little bit later on. But we're down to our final 10 then. Execute, another one of these teams that are teetering on the edge of that relegation zone. They're down to just 2 members, so they are going to be desperate to try and survive. The next circle is pretty good for them, though, and they do have a caustic to work with, which is giving them plenty of information as to where they're being pushed from.
Yeah, it's been a big pull to the west as well, towards Runoff. So I think a lot of teams who are maybe pandering for that circle that was ending a little bit more central to what we saw that from the second circle that we saw are going to be in all sorts of problems here and forced to rotate. And now you're going to see Horizon have to make the play here with the Gibby Bubble. Have the Devotion in hand as well, so he'll be pretty set for anyone who does push. As we see, there's a player up on that charge tower as well. A couple of players actually surrounding that area. Now we're going to see Blast have to make this push here. He gets taken down in the fight, though, and Nook now having to trade this out, and it's a battle between Nook and I believe this is Papega Gibbo. Gets the beat down on him and can't quite finish it off. Nook's had to back down. Kuya's the last man alive with just a few HP, but he will get taken down, and Nook somehow survives long enough here to hopefully not only get his teammates up, but push himself up those placement points.
Papega Gibbo eliminated. Figvam are another team that have been struggling as well, but they seem to be set up very kind of healthy at this point. They've got plenty of shields to work with. They are in the next circle, or at least very close to it. Whereas Outsiders, a team that are in the outside at the moment, it's just going to be the one player. Kaja is going to try and rat his way into the next circle. BDS are just walking through this building at the moment as well. They're in a pretty good position. They can find themselves into the next circle. They just have to probably drop onto a fight. And I think in the next kind of 10 seconds as this circle closes, Mark, we're going to see 4 or 5 teams forced into engagements with one another.
Yeah, Nasky, Strafe, and Dell also in a good position here. But the interesting thing for me is when we saw that leaderboard pop up, how many of those teams who are still left in our top 8 here in game number 5 are teams who are maybe involved in that bottom 5 relegation scrap. So huge games for those particular teams. The only problem for those teams is the fact that some of the other teams around them who are in those relegation positions are also having big games. So now we're going to see the push have to be made here, as BDS are going to have to tank gas and desperately try and stay alive. Can they find themselves into a position to actually rotate out? It looks like they won't be able to. That's a little bit of a misplay for me coming in from them, as you can see Nasky, Strafe, and Dell still in a position. And BDS, you have to say the play call was pretty poor from them. They left it too late. And having worked out their initial rotation wasn't a healthy one, they just got absolutely destroyed by the circle coming in. So now we're going to go back on board with Nasty, Strafe, and Dell, who have held down this position for pretty much the majority of this game. Swapping between the R301 and the R99 as well, dependent on range. I kind of like this as well.
Swapping. 4 teams left. Triumph, Nasky, Strafe, Finalized, and Figvam are going to be 4 of those teams. And you're completely right. A couple of teams there that are at the bottom, close to that relegation zone. So this is going to be a huge game to really change up the leaderboards. Nasky, Strafe, and Dell do have the ability to get out of this building they're in. Triumph are going to just be popping a zip line across so that they can survive as well. And in 30 seconds, I think all hell is going to break loose. There is one team that already resides in that circle, so they are going to be the main focus point for some of these teams trying to push in. But of course, they have the advantage. They are going to be looking out from that circle and be able to deal damage to those running in. May be able to pick up some easy kill points at this point. But you can see Finalized are now trying to plan their way into the circle. The portal comes through. They've managed to find themselves with a little bit of cover, a little bit of space, and now they can start to push. Some decent shots coming out from the Mastiff, and that's going to be enough to allow Finalized to push with the bubble as well and take this area of the map, Mark.
Yeah, but here come the team behind them as well. They have to be careful. This is a big bubble fight for them. Nook's going to try and pop that battery. Is he going to have enough time to get this off? He is just about. He's got 10 HP to work with, even less. But they managed to get a position here by this wall, down to our final 3 teams. Now with the devotion shots here from Horizon are crispier than a pancake. And now we're going to see more coming in from him. And he manages to get taken down, but big damage done by the devotion, as we see FGM here involved in this final battle. But it's Triumph who are one of these 2 teams who are alive. The only problem is there's only one of them still left in this game. It's Matey. And unfortunately for him, he's not longed for this world. He gets taken down and Finalized. One of our teams who are struggling coming into this game number 5 will pick up a huge boost. So not only their points, but they're confident as well ahead of our final game.
That game is really going to shake up the bottom of the leaderboard. So many teams that were kind of there or thereabouts around that relegation zone picked up some huge placement points. Kill points are going to be massive as well. So once we get an update with the leaderboards, we can get a better idea of it. My question to you, Mark, is how crispy do you have your pancakes? It's slightly concerning.
You know, like, I meant this is going to be weird for anyone that's not from the UK as well. Finder's crispy pancakes is what I was trying to get, and I got that in my head. And
all right,
I was like, wait, and as soon as I said it, I was like, I'm going to sound like someone who like burns pancakes and is a complete weirdo. But like, fluffy pancakes are obviously the best kind of pancakes. So yeah, but Finder's crispy pancakes, if you don't know what they are, get on Google, look them up. It's what you eat when you're about 6 years old, or if you're Dan Gaskin when you're 20. What? How old are you? Don't worry, when you're an old man, it's fine.
Oh man, how dare you? I'm 29.
I know.
Jeez, I'm not that.
I'm older than you. I'm winning the race of life.
You very much
That's how I see
are.
it.
That was a very interesting end to the game, very hectic end to the game. Everyone just trying to desperately get into that last circle. 4 teams who basically had the opportunity to win, and it came down to who was hitting their shots. But in the early stages, we saw a lot of early fights as well. Very different to what we saw on the first map. in Kings Canyon, that's for sure. Alliance picked up some big frags in the early stages. Then things slowed down in the middle of the game, and then as that circle got even tighter, we started to see more fights. And how close did Flavor of the Month Pierre get to surviving here? So he hit some huge shots, but just couldn't connect with that second one.
Yeah, of course, it came through and managed to clean things up. And this was the fight that went down between Nook and I believe it was Kuya. He got the beat down on him, and I thought he was done for then, but unfortunately, 4Kuya wasn't able to reload quite in time to get the finish on that. But this is the end game that we were talking about. Teams flying all over the place. They were the crispy pancake shots, and I'm going to own it from the Devotion as Horizon managed to take down one player. But in the end, it came down to Nook, who managed to dive in and get that big mastiff shot off to win the game. It might have even been a 1v1 there, as we saw only one point of view from one side of things there, but a big mastiff shot. It's ended a couple of games so far, and I won't be surprised to see it end another one in our last game today.
I think Figvan will be a little bit disappointed with that. They had Circle, they had the perfect place, they had 3 people alive, and they were able to shoot so many people coming towards them at the Circle, but they just weren't able to win that last engagement. Like, they could have won that game, but I think they'll be pretty happy considering where they were in, like, before on the leaderboards.
All right, well, we've got one more game to bring you all today in the GLL Summer Masters for the EMEA region. So we're going to take a quick break beforehand. Don't go anywhere, though, because we've got our final game of the day coming right up. Welcome back to the GLL Masters Summer. Dan Gaskin alongside me, on set calling the action. And Dan, it's time for our final game of the day. We're heading on to Kings Canyon for the final time. Game number 6. And I just want to see the leaderboards, to be honest with you. I want to see who's in contention for potentially being top of the table. But most importantly, in my opinion, who's in those relegation spots.
Yeah, this is something that we're not necessarily used to, having that something to play for at the bottom end of the table. Those relegation spots are going to be huge. You drop into Bravo, you're not picking up the double points. You're less likely to be able to get to the finals if you don't have those double points available. And then also, later we'll probably see which 5 teams are moving up from the Bravo table. So we're going to see teams that are going to be throwing kind of a spanner in the works into this Alpha division as well. But certainly in that particular match, in match 5, a lot of teams who were struggling throughout the first 4 were able to pick up some really big points.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you raised there. The fact that we had so many teams involved in that top 10 who had previously struggled throughout today's action on match week 1 is interesting, because it's certainly going to shake things up as far as those relegation positions are concerned. And a few teams who might have got a few extra KP on the board towards the end could find themselves quite comfortably climbing out of those spots. And then you're kind of looking between the teams who are in that, and to use a horrible, cliche that's used in football a lot, and I can see you raising an eyebrow already. If 2 of those teams who are in that relegation zone run into each other, that fight becomes a real 6-pointer, Dan. You don't know who's going to win it.
It does become a 6-pointer, or actually, it genuinely becomes a 6-pointer because you get two points per kill. I don't know if you actually meant to say 6 points, or you're just thinking about football.
It's exactly what I meant.
Very, very clever you are, young man. But yeah, you're completely right. There will be teams that will want to avoid maybe these teams that have been really dominating the field so far, but then also if they get any sort of indication that they're going up against another team in the relegation zone, if they see something on the kill feed and they say, okay, that's a team that are currently in 18th, let's wipe them out because we have to, then we might see just a little bit more aggression coming through from some of these bottom teams. On the other side, we also might see teams who are desperately trying to stay alive for placement points. But here is the leaderboard then after match 5. So Flavor of the Month still at the top of the table. Alliance and Triumph and Gambit Esports are very closely contested. And Nasky Strafe and Dell also up there too. But it is that bottom half of the table we need to be looking at, that bottom 5. I think at this point, Lava City Boys may be accepting their fate because they are 28 points off of just 16th. So they need to have a massive game, and that would just get them up to 16th. They need to be finding themselves up to major pushers who are 36 points ahead of them. So there is very much for them to do, but a lot of teams there in that bottom 5 that have been able to get a decent amount of points on the board. Before that game, people were on 8, people were on 6, people were on 10. Now we're looking at teams on 30 points that still find themselves in the relegation zone.
Here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for our final game of match week 1 here in the EMEA region for, of course, the GLL Masters Summer. You can see where everyone's dropping. No early contention going on that I can see at the moment. A couple of teams actually at capacitor, I believe. So we might see some early action over there. And the last time, I believe it was actually Alliance who were one of those teams who were fighting in that position. So I'm actually going to be on board with Fenerbahce Esports, one of those teams who are in a little bit of a problem. But just as I say that, we're going to swap over to Gambit Esports and Hardeki because he's in a difficult spot here. Has to try and get a big shot off here onto the race.
Was that a trade?
He gets taken down. Was that a trade? Did both players just die? What's happened here?
I think that was a
18
trade.
18 squads remaining.
No. That was Lava City boys as well. They needed to survive. They're out. They're relegated. They're done. So
the first time I've seen that happen, I have to say.
Probably thought he'd done enough. He was able to get the shot off. He got the kill, but then the trade is so detrimental to Lava City boys. If he had been able to stay alive, Rez's team, then maybe there was a chance for a big game for Lava City boys. But I guess we don't even need to think about their comeback potential now. They are definitely relegated into the Bravo division as bottom of the Alpha division this week. But a shame for Gambit going down so early as well.
Yeah, you know when you have those moments where it's like, what's going on?
What is it?
Like, I just saw 2 players drop. I was like, players shouldn't be trading. But anyway, that's what happened. We have to call it as we see it. And unfortunately, as you say, the Lava City boys will be spending next week in the Bravo division, starting their fight back up to get back involved in this Alpha division. But on board with EGSA now. Our South African representatives who do need a pretty big game here to secure their Alpha division status for match day number 2 coming up next time that we're back here to bring you the action. But Fenerbahce Esports, again, nice shots here from the R9. The alternator comes out as well to try and finish, but unfortunately it's just breaks of the armor and those kills are trying to get away. Portal goes out. They managed to get back into position. Can Fenerbahce Esports get these kills on the board? They managed to take down 2 members here of EGSA, and that's a team who is around them. So for Pinky Finky and everybody surrounded him, and that means that they're going to have points on the board, and this could be a big game for them. They could manage to survive another week here in the Alpha lobby.
Well, you said that was one of the 6-pointers. I mean, EG definitely down there as well as
a real 6-pointer, Dan. A real 6-pointer.
They were able to pick up those kills is absolutely massive, but Bodyguards are under a bit of pressure as well. Legit Lolly is certainly going to be struggling at this point, but Phoenix has the gold armor, but unfortunately he's just caught between all sorts of gases and they are going to fall. Bodyguards will be taken out. Alliance on the other side are also trying to get out of dodge at the moment, caught in a Gibby ult. So that's Bodyguards, Elite Gaming, Lava City Boys, and Gambit all going down. That could be Elite Gaming also relegated at this point. Bodyguards, though, they had a good game earlier, so like to think they'd be safe, but you never really know what might happen.
That was one of the nastiest deaths I've seen in Apex Legends in a long time. Being caught in a corner, burned into a thermite with caustic gas going off in your face, not being able to see anyone, can't shoot. It's not the way that you want to go, but Alliance here coming under pressure again, and there's so much aggression in this lobby here in our final game of the day. You can see Strafe getting involved in the kill feed as well. He's just managed to get back in here to at least get one of his teammates' banners back to potentially get him back in the game. But for the Alliance man at the moment, his dip, dop, dive, I don't even know what the saying is, but it doesn't matter because he's dead.
Just throw in another D. He's dead. He doesn't matter.
He's dead.
Dodging, ducking. He is out of this game.
Dying.
See Alliance out yet again. Elitist down to just 1 player. It's going to be Strafey getting somewhat aggressive here because I feel like he has to. It's a 1v1. It's Nasky he's going up against. Nasky, Strafe, and Dell have done so well earlier, and Nasky has done the job to take out Strafey, and now he can revive his teammates. And that's a good job for Nasky, Strafe, and Dell, but not so good for Team Elitist, who again have struggled to find some points here and could be struggling when we look at those final leaderboards.
Well, that was an interesting start to the game. Everyone just decided to have a big scrap here on Kings Canyon, and it's been very exciting to watch, to be honest with you. Teams hold...
There's more.
Go on.
If you thought it was over, it's not over. There's more that want to get involved here.
The Revenant ult has come in as well. I believe that is in front of them as they started to fly out, and it's flavoured them up. Surprise, surprise. We're trying to be aggressive. They're going to get the frag grenade inside the bubble as well to try and blow that door off and do the damage. But it looks like here, Notha's recognized the situation. There's actually retreating here because his team might be coming under pressure from behind. And it's Fenerbahce Esports, who are the team who have now, like a hermit crab, like Hodzik likes to say, moved up on that position once it was left and taken it for themselves.
Foze has been absolutely ripped apart, though, so that will stop any sort of push from them just yet. But the important factor for Fenerbahce is they've at least been able to accumulate a decent amount of shields here, as Flavor of the Month have backed off. They will be below Fenerbahce, but KMKUA are able to survive. They are now under fire from yet another team. They can catch a break in the moments, but some huge shots coming out from the Mastiff. Make that another one. Can he get a third as well? It's decent damage, but is it going to be enough? It's going to be San Rugby. They do survive. They take down YDN, but here comes another squad. Just when they thought they were safe, they are going to...
What is happening?
He's not going to survive either. Surely going to fall. It's Flavor of the Month who come through. 12 squads left, and I feel like we only just exited the dropship.
Round 1 closes in 1 minute and 25 seconds, and almost half the lobby has died. And Flavor of the Month, they weren't the first party, they weren't the second. They certainly weren't the third, but they were the fourth to come in that fight. And finally, a little bit of calm will descend upon that building there, just in location of the watchtower. But this has been interesting, to say the least. Everyone's leaving it out there, and look at this. Surprise, surprise. More fighting going down here on Kings Canyon, and it's BDS who are involved here against Papega Gibbo. Beautiful shots there with the Mastiff to take that player down. Unfortunately for him, it means that the player's going to fly him. The Wraith gets taken down. Psychop, unfortunately, had too much to do. And Zifferful come in with just a few HP to his name in order to get the revive and win that battle. 11 squads.
Yeah, BTS, the next on the list to be eliminated in the first circle. Now, I know I wanted to go for my dinner at some point, but I didn't expect it to be this fast and this pace in this game. Flavor of the Month are now under even more pressure. 2 of them have gone down, and it's Fenerbahce Esports pushing, getting aggressive, and now the kill leaders. They need a big game. They're in that relegation possibility, but it looks like they are out for blood here as they push themselves into the top 11, get that kill leader, and potentially take down Flavor of the Month.
And you never know, the Pinky Finky clutch might be just around the corner.
Oh, I can't wait.
Number 6.
Hello.
There's a Revenant.
That was the last thing I was expecting to see on my screen, but thanks for giving me a smile. Oh, my.
Just gonna let this play out. There's some things don't need to say anything else. There's Noth from Flavor of the Month. Now we've got some context. It was almost better that we didn't have it, but Flavor of the Month still involved. You have to remember, they're the team who are actually at the top of the table at the moment here on week 1. So for Noth to pull off something similar to what Taylor did in that second game of the day on World's Edge, where he managed to sneak his way into a second place finish, would be absolutely huge for them. With 11 squads remaining, it wouldn't surprise me now to see a little bit of calm, quite simply because there's not enough teams to actually run into each other anymore. Yeah. There's too much space for them.
Plenty of real estate to go around. Everyone can kind of set up shop at this point, and they don't need to be taking fights. But I feel like at this point, it doesn't really matter what I say. People are going to be taking fights anyway because people are just loving the aggression. And I'm happy to see it. The more fights, the better. But at least Noth was able to survive that ambush from Fenerbahce Esports. Finalized to be working their way in from outside of this circle as well. They're one of the teams who have had to travel the furthest, and they've probably heard all of this destruction going down, and they're saying, what on earth is happening? We found ourselves into the top 11 at this point. We've hardly even seen anyone.
We can see where that circle is looking to finish down the bottom there in the river basin just outside of water treatment. There's a couple of end circles around that area, one that's a little bit to the south of it, one in the little dip just outside, and then there's one that's actually under the watchtower. So we have to see how those play out. But Third Impact, one team who is still very much involved in this game, number 6, and a team who are still very much involved at the top of the table as well. So opportunity for them to really put some points on the board. And much like them, Nasky, Strafe, and Del, 3 players who are positioned incredibly well. I think there was about 3 or 4 teams in that top 5 or 6 who were within about 8 points of each other. So those positions can quickly switch around should those teams manage to win a fight.
Figvam, very healthy in terms of their position and what they have in terms of weapons and shields at the moment. I'd always be pretty happy with at least a blue shield. Of course, everyone would like to have the purples, but when you've not had the early engagements, you will accept at least a mediocre inventory. You can see that they are kind of just waiting in the moment for this circle to close in and seeing if anyone is going to put pressure on them. They're not getting aggressive. But aggression, I think, has already been a pretty heavy talking point for this game, so I'm not really surprised that things have slowed down. But as I say that, there's an ambush here from Pepega, and Matafe is able to take down third Impact's first member. Ziki falls, and now it's whether the rest of the team are going to follow up and try and save him here.
Yeah, so that's one of the problems for teams who are trying to push onto buildings and think the buildings are free when Watson hasn't been as prevalent recently. You don't have that information that a team is just going to be camping in corners, just going to be hiding in corners, so you kind of walk through the door nice and lackadaisical and expect there to be all the room in the world for you to maneuver. But now it's down to Balanji in a 1v1, I believe. Still has that death protection, is going to be taken back and sent back, so now he's going to be the lone player alive. Has to return to this fight with the Mastiff in hand. Only 11 on that shot. Tries to silence the window. Beautiful shot, and it's Matafe here, who's just trying to hold off for Zipeth to heal. Beautiful shot from the Mastiff again, and surely this has to be the end of the battle. Great Mastiff shots there from Matafe to take down the final player there from third Impact Black. And not only that, all of his teammates will be revived back into the game. So they're going to be able to continue to fight their way up the table. But you can see the team tracker on the right-hand side. You can see if your favorite team has been eliminated or they're still in this top 10 in our final game here of the day.
For the majority, a very healthy selection of players available as well. Outsiders are down to just 2, Flavor of the Month down to just 1, but apart from that, still a full roster for the other 8 teams in this top 10. And there are a couple of those teams that are in that relegation possibility as well, still in this, but maybe they're picking up enough points now. Fenerbahce Esports, one of those teams that will be trying to pick up points. They were the kill leaders last time we saw them. Executors are another team that certainly will be trying to pick up a lot of points in this last game as well. And I think we knew this was going to happen. We knew that match 6, we were going to see the teams that were kind of down and out have to play out and have to get a big game. We saw like the likes of Lava City Boys. They were on the other end of the spectrum. They felt right at the start of the game, but the other ones who needed the big points have seemed to have stepped up at the right time to at least give themselves a chance.
You see Flavor of the Month still involved as well, as Noth has found himself a little bush to call his friend. And then he'll be hoping that everyone else does the work for him as he just sits in that position for as long as possible. And we can see the wide rotation here from Finalized. And this is a pretty good position because you got the high ground above some of these buildings as you're moving in. And obviously those buildings in front very likely to be taken as we have another little look at Revenant Cam. This is Noth Cam. How you doing, Noth? How's the bush?
Just waiting in the wings. I mean, we've already seen one member of Flavor of the Month be able to survive to the end game. It was Taylor last time we saw it. That was way back on World's Edge, which I was going to say feels like an age ago, but actually it doesn't. These games have flown by with the speed we've seen people picking up kills and the fact it hasn't been going to that last final circle. It's been ending on a couple of circles earlier than we maybe are used to in competitive Apex in recent months. But certainly for now, with 10 squads left, things have slowed down because everyone's been able to find themselves on a part of the map. But there is a heavy contention right dead center. You can see there are a few teams there that are probably... Is that 2 teams or 3 teams that could potentially be going up against each other here? They seem to be right on top of each other. So that is going to be a scary factor if you are on the bottom of it.
Yeah, I think there's a team under the tower. There's a team on top of the tower. So I think they're kind of safe for now, both of those teams. I don't think they'll be engaging particularly soon. Obviously, that top team might have to drop down at some point and try and rotate. But for Pepega Gibbo, they're set up pretty nicely inside this house at the moment, just holding down those angles, holding down those doors. I'm waiting for anyone who's stupid enough to push in to give them some free KP. And you can see Nook here just trying to clear out the backside of this circle, making sure there's no rats behind him, making sure there's no players behind. You can shoot them in the back, and then that's huge information to know that, knowing that you've only got to look in one direction ahead of you and you're not going to get snuck up on. So big stuff for them. And you can see Matafe, Kuya, and Zipeth very happy with the fact that I think their building is just inside of that next circle as well. So solid stuff here from this trio. They're going to be in a pretty good position to go deep into this game.
Dell takes a lot of damage there, but he has the room to back off. Outsiders are also going to be under fire, and they are right on the edge of the circle. So Teams will certainly be keeping tabs on them as Pepega Gibbo will now get aggressive. Zipeth takes down Blast as well. Outsiders have been able to pick up one onto FGM Xander, but Pepega Gibbo will just retreat and get back into this building as they don't have to push too much. They don't need to get aggressive. They're in a decent position. They will be in the next circle at one side of this building. But I feel like they're just eager to get kills, as is everyone in this lobby right now. They just want to pick up those kill points. They want to show and maybe just assert their dominance on the rest of their lobby.
Yeah, they were fine, but now that next circle's popped, they are going to have to actually move, I believe, here. So they're going to be looking for picks to clear out a space for them to potentially move into. You can see Matafe's going to be out scouting as well, trying to find some sort of position for them to move to next. But Zipeth's going to be forced back here into the building to pop the bat.
They can stay in the building ever so slightly, but they just might put themselves in a bad position for that following circle. Like, they are still in just in one of the corners, but it's whether they feel comfortable there or not. There is a bit of room to work with because of the amount of teams left, but the circle is getting smaller and space is starting to run out. Figvam are going to now try and traverse this map to get into a comfortable position, but they are running to a lot of red arrows. But it's whether they can just find themselves into a little nook and cranny. But speaking of nook, he's certainly still somewhere in a cranny of his own. Figvam are going to spot someone out, and it's going to be a Wraith. The Wraith is going to portal away into the void he goes. But Figvam at least have been able to get somewhat close to this circle before being spotted. But as I say that, there's Fenerbahce. They are in prime position right now, Mark.
I'm really excited about this. Fenerbahce Esports, don't let me down in this game number 6. They execute now. They're the team who are underneath them at the bottom of the tower. We talked about how these two teams are sort of stacked up upon each other, and it's going to be up to neither of those teams actually to make any particular moves. Both of them will be safe when that next circle closes here in round 4 in around 13 seconds or so. Fenerbahce Esports here. There is a team behind them, and Foze has to be super careful here. They do have the Watson ult down, which means it's going to eat up that Gibraltar defensive bombardment that's coming out, and Pinky Finky manages to get into the void just in time to avoid that damage coming in from the team pushing them. But Fenerbahce Esports, it's a big moment, not only in this game for them, but in the context of the entire tournament. Currently in one of those relegation positions, but they've already got KP on the board. They're inside that top 10. For Foze, Pinky Finky, and Draconian, this is a huge fight for them to win.
Yeah, the Turkish side that dominated the EMEA qualifiers are starting to dominate this lobby as well as it stands. Major pushers are going to be the ones underneath them. Ranches is so weak, so is my one. Ranches surely is going to fall. Pinky Finky goes down. The rest of FB are trying to do their best, but they can't connect with their shots. It all comes down to Draconian here. He's trying to desperately survive and hide behind the shield. He has to win this engagement. Otherwise, they could find themselves potentially in that relegation spot. Can he get a revive? Can he win this fight? This is all or nothing, really, for this team.
Yeah, Draconian needs to do something magical here for Fenerbahce Esports, using that knockdown shield so effectively. The only problem is it's run out now. As the player's going to move in, Foze will be taken down, and Draconian will go down as well. So that is going to be, I think, the end, unfortunately, of Fenerbahce Esports. Just eliminated, you can see it here. Is that going to be enough for them, though, to make their way into the Alpha lobby in week number 2? That's the question for them. But over to Triumph now. You can see they're in a good position. You see that circle is going to be moving pretty soon. We can see Noth still nice and comfy, wrapped up in his bush. The only problem is there's a player literally in front of him. There's a Wraith in front of you, Noth. How are you being so reserved? How are you not pulling the trigger? Is you even there? No,
surely he's just AFK at this point. He's just left it. He's gone to make a cup of tea, but neither player sees him just crouched in the corner, and he is so good with his trigger discipline there. Obviously, he could have gone for that one kill, could have got those points, but instead, he is looking at the bigger picture. He's looking at the placement points that are being available. He has been left now to just move on to this next circle, and he can be such a nuisance. Major pushers are under so much fire here. Cleave has fallen. My one is at least back up, but Ranches is going to be the one who's going to be doing the damage here. He has the gold shield to work with. His teammate falls, but he's going up against a red Evo shield. This is not going to be easy, but he does some real damage with the R99, and things starting to get a lot more fast-paced at this point as the circle getting smaller and smaller, Mark.
Yeah, and it's going to be, I believe that is going to be, unfortunately, the end of Noth. But look at this. He managed to get into a top 3 position as well. As in all of that fight, we're now down to our final 2 teams. It's going to be Ranches up top. The only problem is there's a player flying in at him. Ranches hit some beautiful massive shots. He doesn't have anything to work with, though. And Naski, Strafe, and Dell will close out our game number 6 with some big shots of their own. But I think that performance there, again, the rap performance coming in from Flavor of the Month might be enough for them to end up finishing top of the table here in week number 1. But the bigger question is who is going to be relegated and who is going to be promoted. But congratulations to Nasky, Strafe, and Dell on the Game 6 victory.
We just saw 6 teams wiped off the face of the map in about 3 seconds. It was so difficult to keep up with. But it is going to be about those kill points that Fenerbahce were able to pick up. They got into the top 10. They were kill leaders for a little bit. Have they done enough? I can't wait to see what this leaderboard is going to do after map 6. But again, just the rat capabilities of Flavor of the Month. Either they're dominating as a trio or one person is being able to survive. The trigger discipline that it takes not to go for that kill when someone is literally there waiting, presenting, showing their butt to you saying, hey, you can shoot me if you want. And he still said, nah, I don't fancy it just yet. But there was the kill trade right at the start of the game that had Lava City Boys completely wiped out of the tournament. Well, at least, sorry, of the Alpha Division for this week. But so many early fights, Mark. So much fast-paced action. I mean, this is great. I'm loving it.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't what we used to seeing in Apex Legends and the competitive scene over the last few months. And to be honest, it's changed from game to game, like on Kings Canyon. First game was very slow-paced, like we mentioned, and this game was just, it was all over the place. Teams were just flying at each other, taking every single battle that they could. And for Fenerbahce Esports, they really did have some moments that showed us that maybe they do belong in this alpha lobby in this particular game, as you saw them winning battles here against Flavor of the Month. And again, one of the teams that I think have been the most impressive in those straight fights so far have been Third Impact Black. They just seem to have won the majority of those fights that they've got into, and just unfortunately for them being in a position where they've got third party quite a fair bit.
This was such a shame for Fenerbahce, though. They just weren't able to win that particular fight, and then this was the moment. There was a player staring right at him, and Noth was still able to survive. Was he able to get another kill point? I think he may have at that point. So that's huge for him, and got into the top 3. But then out of nowhere came Nasky, Strafe, and Dell just to clean up everyone else who had been made weak. And that was a very entertaining match number 6, and I just want to see these leaderboards.
Yeah, the standings is what we're waiting on confirmation of right now. Hopefully you've enjoyed, of course, the EMEA region action today. Of course, we've got the Americas coming up as well. Loads of Apex action to be tuning in for over the next few weeks or so before we obviously get towards our finals. But Dan, I mean, who's been the standout team for you today? Who's impressed you the most in Europe? Obviously, taking the rankings aside, that obviously we're still waiting to get worked out and calculated. Who has been the lineup that's impressed you most?
I think Flavor of the Month is the obvious one with how they adapt to any scenario, whether they've got a 3, whether their back's against the wall and they're down to a rat situation. I thought Alliance played really well on World's Edge, but then they dropped off a little bit on Kings Canyon. Again, the same you could say for Third Impact, but I do respect that Third Impact shifted their composition ever so slightly to try and adapt to the Kings Canyon change, but it has to be Flavor of the Month. I mean, I know that's the obvious one because they were top of the table, but it was just how successful they were, no matter what opportunity of them and what situation they were presented with.
We'll take a look at some of the highlights from a little bit earlier in the day as well, just to get you up to date with everything that happened on Kings Canyon. This was game 4 that we saw a little bit earlier, and Alliance started off pretty solidly, but this was the 1v1 I think that took forever, but eventually, unfortunately for Alliance, was not won by them. They fell, and it was Hackis with the P2020, which we saw him with a lot of in this game, who got taken down by Ranchers here from the high ground.
Yeah, and it was this fight that gave Major Pushers the chance going into these last few games as well. If they hadn't won that fight, they would have found themselves in a really sticky situation, potentially in the bottom 5, and we'll see whether they were able to crawl out of it. Fenerbahce fell early yet again. Third Impact were part of the kind of collection that were able to switch over to a Revenant Legend to be able to be used to make sure that they can get aggressive, to make sure that they can be pushing. But unfortunately, aggression also introduces other people to get aggressive on you. You make a lot of noise, the third parties are going to be available, and then the end of this game, well, I mean, it was going to be an obvious winner because one team was on one side of the wall and the bodyguards were able to just successfully hold off anyone who's going to be pushing in.
Yeah, I think around 75% of that end circle is within a concrete wall, so pretty difficult to actually rotate into that if you're on the team that's the other side of it. But yeah, pretty simple win there for bodyguards at the end. But again, KP on the board for Third Impact, what they're going to be super happy with. But I think the thing that surprised me a little bit in this Kings Canyon lobbies, as we take a look at the game 5 highlights as well, is the fact that I feel there hasn't still been a set way that teams want to play on Kings Canyon. Do they want to be aggressive? Do they want to try and rotate early? Because we saw pretty much every single playstyle that you could imagine on Kings Canyon from different teams in those 3 games that we saw today.
Yeah, everyone tried something a little bit different, and some adjusted from World's Edge, some just carried on their composition from World's Edge. One of my favorite ones was Revenant plus Gibby plus Watson, and seeing how that kind of changed going into Kings Canyon. But to be honest, I think that ultimately it was those who were comfortable on what they picked and what they've played for the last few months that seemed to be successful. We saw a lot of kind of default compositions. Maybe that will change in the next couple of weeks. Maybe that will change tomorrow when we look at the North American side of things. Certainly, North America and Europe historically have had very different metas anyway. Some teams more aggressive than others. But at the end of match 5, that's when we saw the aggression coming out. FGM were able to pick up some big kills, but it was finalized in this final fight, and it was Nuts getting that last kill to pick up some huge points for finalized going into game 6.
Yeah, it was a beautiful last shot there from that Mastiff. And then, of course, game 6, what we just saw was Naski, Strafe, and Dells to take home. But we'll take a look at the highlights from that just to remind you once more, because this was, in my opinion, one of the craziest games of competitive Apex I've seen. It threw everything out of the window that I thought I knew about competitive Apex, and everyone just ran at each other. That is literally what happened for the first circle, and the second circle, and the third.
It just seemed like everyone was out for blood. In particular, Fenerbahce, they knew they had their backs against the wall, so they went for kills, and they were very successful, got themselves into the top 10, but they just weren't able to get themselves any further. Naski, Strafe, and Dell, you can see how they were struggling early on as well, but the fact they were able to come back and win this game is pretty impressive, considering how early on was a little bit of a struggle for the fights they were having. FB did pretty well for the majority, but that was when they actually started to come under a lot of fire. I think everyone wanted to take that position off them. They had the prime real estate at that point. They had the top position. They had the high ground. So everyone wanted to take them away from that. And it just meant that they had to go through numerous fights. And back-to-back-to-back fights is always going to be a struggle.
You can see here, this was the moment that Fenerbahce had to win. It was a difficult situation for them. And unfortunately, they got taken down. Noth, though, for Flavor of the Month, his turn to rat out in this game and be that last man alive, and made it all the way towards the end game. Beautiful kill there, extra KP for him, which could be a big influencing factor as we move through the weeks as well. Just remember, double points in the alpha lobby as well, so even one kill there for Noth is going to be 2 points on the board, which is something to certainly speak about. So congratulations for them. But I mean, I just want to see the standards. That's what I'm looking forward to right now. We want to see who's top of the table, excuse me. We want to see who is going to be relegated, and I'll tell you what, we can do that right now. Drum roll, please. Naski, Strafe, and Dell. We know the results from the final game. This is match number 6. Top 48 points, 12 kills for them. Papega Gibbo in second place with 14 placement points, 36 overall. Major pushers. Fenerbahce with a big 14 points, Dan. Flavor of the Month with 14 points as well. But you have to wonder, is that going to shake up the bottom of the table, on the top of the table, enough to change things around?
Well, look at what a low-scoring game it was. Lava City Boys, who were eliminated first, were still able to pick up 6 points and technically finish in 10th in that game because there were just so many kills being dominated by those who were at the top of the lobby. The sheer amount of aggression from those people who were able to do enough. And I think, yeah, surely Fenerbahce have been able to do a decent amount here, but is it going to be enough to get them out of the bottom 5? Are they going to be able to stay in that alpha division, or are they going to be falling to the Bravo? We know that the likes of Elite Gaming are going to be eliminated. Lava City Boys are eliminated as well, but we can look at the overall leaderboard now, and this is going to be that moment where we see who is out.
Oh my god. Naski, Strafe, and Dell, with that last game performance, have managed to sneak into first place. Flavor of the Month fall into second by only a few points. Papega Gibbo, big performance from them pushes them up into third. But looking down at the bottom here, I'm trying to see, have Fenerbahce made it out? No, unfortunately, they haven't. They weren't able to get enough points on the board. So it will be YDN Esports, Elite Gaming RSA, Execute, Fenerbahce, and Lava City Boys, who will unfortunately be dropping down to the Bravo division. But they will be replaced, of course, by those top 5 teams coming up from the Bravo division. So congratulations to Naski, Strafe, and Dell on their performance. A huge final game for them to put them top of the leaderboards. But here is the results of the Bravo division, Dan.
Yeah, SJP2, Dead Inside, Navi, Vibin, and North will be the 5 teams promoted. Weiger's just missing out by 3 points in the end. It was 3 placement points as they had the same amount of kills as North. So that is some big boy teams joining the Alpha Division next week in the EMEA region. A shame for some of those teams that did drop from the Alpha Division. I mean, Fenerbahce, for example, they had 9 kills in total, but it was just their placement points that wasn't good enough. They weren't able to get to those latter stages of the game. Otherwise, they might have been able to find their way, like, creeping out of that top 5. But a big last game wasn't enough for them. They had to do better in the first 5.
Again, experience against some of the best teams in the world, though, is always going to be a great thing for these teams who make their way into the alpha lobby. And I'm sure that Fenerbahce Esports and the 5 teams, excuse me, that managed to unfortunately find themselves into that Bravo division for next time are gonna be fighting back, and they're going to be able to take some of the things that they've learned into that next game week of action. But Nasky, Strafe, and Dell is really what we should be talking about as well. Top of the table with a humongous performance after that game 6 win means that they will be the winners here on week 1 of match week 1. God, that was really difficult to say. I got inside my own head with that, you know, when you do that sometimes, but they managed to pull it off, so congratulations to them. Excited to see how the meta develops, though, Dan, over the next couple of weeks, and excited to see how teams develop, how play styles develop, if it splits between World's Edge and Kings Canyon, because I still think that we're struggling to know the answer to those questions after week 1.
Yeah, certainly. And things are going to change a little bit in that people are going to see repetitiveness from other teams. They'll start to learn the drop locations, regardless of whether they were a part of scrims or not. People will start to adjust their compositions to try and maybe not just counteract other people in the lobby, but maybe just to join the meta that is developing in these lobbies. If it is just going to be sheer aggression, do you, as a team who maybe likes to play more defensive, switch things up, maybe add a caustic just to be kind of that counteracting team? Or do you say, all right, we're going to join you, we're going to put a Revenant on our side as well, we're also going to offer a little bit more aggression? Maybe we'll get a random legend like Octane thrown in. Who knows what could happen? Okay, maybe I'm asking for a bit much, but we did see a lifeline, so I'm a little bit happy with that as someone who used to main lifeline a lot.
Of course, just a reminder, there's not just the EMEA region that's being covered here in the GLL Masters Summer. It is, of course, the Americas that's going to be on tomorrow, so make sure that you catch up with all of that action. And that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I'm super excited to see how that action develops over the next couple of weeks as well, because I just wonder if there's going to be a team that kind of stands out and works out the meta a little bit quicker than everyone else. You know what I mean? There's going to be a team who's consistent across not only World's Edge but Kings Canyon as well, and is everyone else going to follow suit, or are players and comps going to be changing to try and counteract that? So all of these stories are going to be fascinating to watch, Dan.
Yeah, and are we going to see people in the EMEA region learn from the American region? Is there going to be people who watch this broadcast, the North American region, looking at it and saying, okay, well, that's how it played out, maybe we're going to try something a little bit different as well? It's all going to develop weeks going on, but it's also going to develop from day to day as well between 2 different regions. And Europe and, well, EMEA and North America have always been different. We've already seen different play styles, but yeah, tomorrow should be interesting, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy it. Are you casting the Americas tomorrow?
That's good. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, oh, is that?
You put me on the spot a little bit there.
You've been given the night shift.
Yeah, what can I say? I've been given the night shift. I get a little bit of a break. It's fine. Don't worry. I'll survive. I'll be back. Don't worry. But Dan, any final thoughts on what you've seen today and who you were most impressed by? It's kind of the powerhouse teams we expected, right?
Yeah, I think the teams that we named at the start of the broadcast, like Flavor of the Month, like Alliance, like Nasky, Strafe and Dell, they all showed what they're made of. We've seen compositions change. I'm excited to see what happens in North America, but ultimately we saw a lot of early fights, and I think that's what's important, because I like seeing early engagements. I like seeing these battles go down.
Okay, well, thank you all for watching. Of course, Dan, absolute pleasure to commentate alongside you once again. Make sure you tune in at 1 a.m. though for the Americas region, because that is going to be a lot of fun. We'll see you there, and hopefully you enjoyed the show today. See you soon.